pursuit of greatness begins at first light.
Last time out, we saw a positively thrilling duel to the finish at Indianapolis between Joshua Chin and Jason Brophy. But as we transition from one Triple Crown event to another, the battle at the top of the championship leaderboard has grown just as thrilling, with defending champion Christian Challoner only a single point ahead of fellow rivals Andrew Waring and James Walker. But at Le Mans, much like Indianapolis, no favorites are played and anything can happen on track, especially during the American Majors 2.4 hours of Le Mans. And you'll see it all here live on the Racing Channel. Hi, I'm DJ Clark, and joining me in the booth tonight is Reese Gardner and Adam Young. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. As a member of racing's famed Triple Crown, the Le Mans circuit shouldn't be a stranger to any motorsports fan. But for those unfamiliar, let's head over to our track guide to learn more.
Welcome to Le Mans. When you talk about legendary circuits, this is a place that stands among the most famous in the world. Part permanent road course, part temporary street circuit, it traipses through the countryside just south of the city where it gets its namesake. Its size matches its reputation as well, clocking it at 8.5 miles, which equates to roughly 13.5 kilometers. However, when you take into account that it's split by only 33 turns, the frighteningly fast nature of this circuit becomes clear. Most of the corners have been added over the century of history it's experienced, but many have become renowned and respected. The two turns at the opposite ends of the massively long Mulsanne Straight play equally important roles. Tertre Rouge requires a great exit in order to not lose massive amounts of time, while Mulsanne Corner takes bravery and precision in order to brake as late as possible and keep opponents from passing you on the way in. There's also hair-raising moments like the tricky entry to Indianapolis, or the close walls along the bridge section in the Porsche curves. To win here, drivers will need a very low downforce setup, a good sense of strategy, and heaps of bravery. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is the crown jewel of endurance racing, which many drivers dream of someday winning and many fans flock to witness in person. Once you've driven the track here on iRacing, it's easy to see why.
Well, Adam, as I said, Le Mans is a track that needs no introduction, but we've got some different cars out here than we normally see. So how do you think today's race is going to go?
You know, being a veteran of running some of these 2.4s with this car combination, these are always exciting. I mean, you still got the old school HBD out there. You got the old school GT1 cars, including the old Corvette, which sounds still absolutely amazing. Me and Sean Ambrose were talking about it off camera a little while ago, and they all complement this track really well here at Le Mans. Of course, the full 33 turn layout over 8.47 miles. These cars are just going to scream down the sand, and I think it's going to put on a great show. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I heard the European side put on a great show earlier on, expecting much of the same here on America's, and man, it's great to be back involved with the majors broadcast here. It's been a while, either between driving or being up here in the broadcast booth, making a return to the broadcast booth tonight. Hey, maybe you'll find me behind the wheel before too long as well.
Well, we hope to see you back there, Adam. But speaking of exciting and thrilling, let's head over to our championship, specifically the Pro Championship, that Pro driver standings. As I said, very, very close up at the top. Challenger only a single point ahead of Waring and Walker after that rough outing at Indianapolis. Chin's win, however, at Indy has gotten him within striking distance of those top trio as well, only 9 points back. Steve Driscoll, he's got a little work to do there, 21 points back, with Austin Espedy only 8 points back of him in fifth. So third place very much still in play. And Reese, I believe you're going to take us through the sportsman category.
I am indeed. Thanks for having me on this broadcast, guys. Aussie Milwane is leading the sports standings by just a point over Joey Haynes. Justin Garrick only 5 points behind. Chris Sherburne making it a very close battle for third place. Jacob Mink and Brian Halleck in fifth and sixth on equal points as well. So there's obviously still a lot to play for that one.
There is indeed. And now we're going to head over to the Sports Teams Championship. And Adam, you can run us through that.
Yeah, on the sports teams, I mean, Ford Sport 1, 326 points, leading the way here so far. But as you know, in these team standings, things can get flipped on their head pretty quick. So 14 points back with Sector 5, 18 points back with High Class. You know, that could all be turned around here at the end of Le Mans because, well, Le Mans has a tendency of chewing people up and spitting them out. And, you know, that's going to be really relevant in the team standings on both the sport and the pro side.
Indeed, it will. And now we're going to take a look at the Pro Teams Championship. And in that, you can see Forge Racing Pro 1, only 6 points ahead of Evolve. Kinetic 1, they're only about 17 points back, so everything is good on there. Kinetic Pro Sport 2, they're about 64 points back, so a good way to play. And Dog Bear Red, a little ways back in fifth as well. And now I believe, Reese, you're going to take us through that Legends Championship.
I am indeed. The Legends Championship for drivers over 50 years of age. Kevin Hill leading by 6 points over Brian Barnes, and Wayne Hutchison making it a very close fight for the lead of that championship as well. Can't wait to see how that one turns out over the rest of the season. Brian McGreevy and Jimbo Pfeiffer very close for fourth and fifth as well, only 2 points between them. So this round, depending on how it goes, could shake up those standings quite a bit.
It certainly could. A lot of points to play for. And we've got one more championship to run through. Adam, I think you're going to take us through the Legends Sports category.
Yeah, and on the Legends Pro side, I remember when Wayne crossed the border and going into the Legends side, and we were giving him a hard time about that. I think it was probably about 2 years or so ago. But on the sports side, Maurice Gomleon is in the lead of those point standings, but only 4 points back with a tie between Covey and Deloach. Gamble in third. Paulison in there in fourth, only 8 points back, and McSparran now 11 points back. So tight battles really all the way around, up and down those point standings in all categories.
Yeah, it's very close across the boards. And we've got one more thing to run you through. We heard us allude it to a little bit more, but these are the race details for today. We are in the 7th round of the Americas region. It is the 2.4 hours of Le Mans. So you have got 2 hours and 25 minutes of racing ahead of you. Drivers are currently out on track right now for a 20-minute 4-lap qualifying session. It is a multi-class race here today. So the top class is going to be those HPDs, those old open cockpit Hondas. The GT1s, well, those are made up of the Aston Martins and those wonderful sounding Corvettes out on track. And then the GT3 category, well, that's going to be the Porsche 911s. So there will be those top points available in all categories there. So we're going to see some interesting mixing and diving in between all of the categories here. Guys who are leading in the championship trying to break themselves up a little bit. Also important to know that all cautions are going to be off today. Watching here as Mark Stevenson comes across the line, but we're going to jump over to Lynn Kinchlow. This is one of the drivers in that GT1 category trying to set a good time out here.
Yeah, Neil Kinch there so far taking up the rear on that GT1 category, but almost near the front. Had Driscoll there for a moment. I think he pulled off, but now we got Ryan Steele, who Ryan has not set a time yet here. So heading through the forward curves, eventually we'll be, if we stick with him here for just a little bit, we'll see what he's got on the table. Right now, the pole in the GT1 category, of course, no surprise, going to Chris Challoner at 3:43.9. Going through the last chicane here, heading to the start-finish line, that Dog Bear Corvette. See what he's able to put down, but it does look like it's going to be toward the back of the GT1 field here, at least on the first lap.
Yeah, it's not going to be the best one for Steele with the 350, but he's still got plenty of time to go out and try to maybe get another one here. Kevin Hill currently third here in that GT1 category, the Evolve Sim Sports driver trying to come across the line. This is going to be a warm-up lap for him, I think, but you at least get a good idea of the time. Oh, he's going to pull off to the side. They're not going to make another run.
Yeah, it's difficult here in this qualifying session. It's going to be quite difficult as Andrew Waring there going to first place in the HPD class, and he has put in a stonking lap time right there. That is 5/10 ahead of Indy 500 winner Joshua Chin. Justin Kirby going for a lap as well, 3:32.6 on that one, as Austin Espity going to fourth in the Porsche Cup class. Lyndon Swaby just pipping there to fourth as well in the HPD class. Can Joshua Chin come back at Andrew Waring? He certainly can. 3:30.109, 6/10 for pole position overall.
That's a mega run there for Chin. Watching Justin Morton as he makes his way through the Ford chicanes here. Morton comes across the line, able to better his time by a couple thousandths of a second, but he will stay in fourth place. Here comes Wayne Hutchinson for the Dog Bear Red team. Currently down in the order in that GT1 category. Let's see if Wayne's got anything. He's going to cross over the line with a 47.7. That should certainly make it better, but it's not going to bump him up the order.
Yeah, of course, Wayne's strong point has always been running these races clean and picking off spots like that. So his qualifying results never really reflect his race results. His race results always awesome. And here comes one of the classic guys in the field, of course, along with Wayne, one of the guys who's been around since almost the beginning, if not the beginning of the majors. Brian Barnes, also Dog Bear Red, coming across the line, beats his old time by over a second, 1.2 seconds. And Challoner now screaming through here in the Corvette.
Yeah, Challoner looking to put in a good time here. He is the only guy of those top four that we talked about. Challoner able to improve his time there ever so slightly and stay on top. He is the only guy in that points conversation who is currently running in that GT1 category. Driscoll has a chance there. He is currently second in class, but here comes Eric Smith, the traditional Corvette yellow and black, the Apex Racing Group driver coming through those Ford chicanes, taking a whole lot of curb and a whole lot of kitty litter there on the way out. That may be an off track for him. I'm not sure if that lap's going to count.
Even if it did, and it was exactly 2/10 slower than what he had before, so it was all lost there. And that 2/10 probably got cost him in the kitty litter. Jason Brophy now coming through the last set of chicanes, and that Kinetic Pro 2 team, and he's gained a lot of time here, DJ.
He does. He's going to cross the line, go 2 whole seconds faster. That's going to bump him up to fourth in class. He's still about 3 seconds off of James Walker's fastest time. There comes Mark Stevenson, who was able to improve on that last lap, it looked like, but it's not going to do him any good. Here comes Ryan Steele there through the Porsche curves, one of the most challenging portions of this track to get right.
Yeah, indeed, particularly through that final turn. It's off camber, and you can get slowdown if you take too much curb on the exit. He didn't take as much of the track as he could have at the end of that one through the Ford chicane here. Very brutal curbs in this section of the track can very easily send drivers a cropper. Is this going to be an improvement for him? It looks like he is going to beat that time by 5/10. So Ryan Steele remaining there in 10th place in GT1. James Walker looking to improve on his pole in Porsche Cup.
Yeah, he's going to want to try to move himself up there. He is one of those drivers who is only a point off of our leader, Christian Challenger, so he's going to want to try to solidify himself in this Porsche Cup field. Forge Racing driver coming into the pits. He's going to call it off. He already knows he's got the pole. Now we jump back. This is Lynn Kinchlow. Lynn, right now, don't think that's actually going to count for Lynn. That is an outlap. And unless I am greatly mistaken, Reese, that is the last driver that is out on track. That'll be, that looks like the qualifying field is set.
Yeah, I think so. I think Ryan's out there, but I don't know if he's necessarily just probably just running. I think here at this point, just to practice and run. I think Kinch is pretty much doing the same. So I'm fairly confident that we've got our grid here set in stone now.
Well, with that in mind, longtime viewers of the majors will know that we always have a charity. And this week, it is the Cure LGMD2I. That is the Limb Girdle Muscular Dystrophy 2I Association. It is a progressively debilitating disease caused by weakness and muscle wasting, mainly in the shoulder and hip areas. This congenital disease is a rare form of muscular dystrophy, and over time, this excessive muscle wasting can result in cardiovascular, respiratory, and overall physical complications, typically beginning in early adolescence. To date, the Cure LGMD2I Foundation, formerly known as the Samantha J. Brazo Foundation, has provided over $6,500,000 to research programs that are working aggressively to establish treatment for the LGMD2I. Although we are thrilled with the generosity of all of their friends, family, and local businesses who have donated to the cause, we here at GSRC and at the foundation continue to rely on your support to award grants to ongoing research projects. We are all hopeful that with the groundbreaking work being done with gene therapy, drug screenings, and clinical trials, a successful treatment will halt the progression of LGMD2I. If you would like to donate, please head over to their website. I believe we have a link in the show notes. It is a great organization fighting for a good cause. Well, Reese, we are now getting ready to grid up here, just waiting for everything to tick over. And in that top category, well, it is Joshua Chin back on top as he was in Indianapolis. To his outside, it'll be Andrew Waring. Behind them, it's Jason Enrique and Lyndon Swaby, with Justin Kirby and Zachary Brown making up row 3 behind them. Chris Tito and Brian Barnes will be 7th and 8th, followed by Brian McGreevy and Nick Kuhn in 9th and 10th. And then to round out that top category of the HPDs, it's Andrew Wood and Joshua Collins, who did not set a time. But Adam, I think you're going to run us through the GT1s.
Yeah, Christian Challenger, of course, always up toward the top of the field. And he's going to be starting on the pole of the GT1s. Alongside him is going to be Steve Driscoll. And row 7 is going to be Kevin Hill and Justin Morton. Row 8 is going to belong to Eric Smith and Brian Bennett. Travis Warling, Liam Quinn are going to make up row 9. Row 10 going to the Wayne Hutchinson and Ryan Steele. And I believe we'll send it over to Reese for the Porsches.
Indeed, Lynn Kinchlow, they're taking up the final slot in the GT1s. It's a 7-car field for the Porsches, but it's looking to be pretty competitive there, with James Walker setting the only time under 4 minutes in that class. Mark Stevenson's going to join him on the first row. Then it's Jeff Schmeier, and second at the Indy 500, Jason Brophy starting alongside him. Austin Espetit, Rob Powers, and Jason Wallet rounding out our field there, with Andrew Wood and Joshua Collins behind them on the timing sheets, but they would have gridded in front of the GT1s. The HPDs already going away here behind the pace car, and it looks like Joshua Chin was challenging that pace car there for leading the way down the track.
Just having a little bit of fun here. Obviously, drivers starting just before the Porsche curves in order to not make this pace lap be absolutely interminably long. The rules for this procedure will, as soon as that Porsche pace car pulls off to the side, the HPDs are allowed to go whenever. GT and Porsche should leave about a 10-second gap in between. It can go on green. Getting ready for the best part of Le Mans, though. Here it comes. You can start to see it. The flyover of the Jets in the tricolor. It is one of the greatest traditions in racing, and it stays true here at Le Mans. Still waiting for it, as nobody is perfect in calling these things. I've been to the Indianapolis 500 many, many a time, and I can only count on one hand the number of times they've gotten the flyover to be absolutely perfect. So good to know that the French have the same problems as we do here, even in the iRacing world.
Yeah, here comes the Patroli Acrobatic de France, is the squad of jets that always does a flyover here at Le Mans. And I probably butchered the name of it. I apologize.
It's all right. Went to school in Indiana. There are plenty of things that I've absolutely butchered in pronunciation over the years, but there it is, the tricolor coming over in that symbolic gesture. One of the greatest sights in racing. Absolutely incredible. And speaking of racing, we're ready to get going. Joshua Chin is on the loud pedal, and here comes the green. Chin gets a very good jump on the field. He is away as everybody starts to pan out. That's Waring starting to make a challenge, but Adam, we jump back to the GT1s.
Yeah, the GT1s now coming through the last set of chicanes. They are on it. Christian Chandler actually doesn't get a good run here coming to the line, but they all kind of get jammed up, so he is able to pull away just a touch. Driscoll is not going to be able to pull away. He's going to be having to fight Kevin Hill to the inside of him. They're going through turn one.
In the Porsches, meanwhile, James Walker's just leading them up to the chicanes. He's starting on the outside of the final chicane here, over the curbs and taking the racing line just a little bit, but the green flag for the Porsches goes, and Walker gets off to a fantastic start there, getting a slight run on Mark Stevenson as they head on down to turn one. Just slotting behind Austin Esparti there was Jason Brophy, losing a position off the start, but it looks pretty clean there in the Porsches.
We've got to jump back up to the front of the HPDs because we've had a little bit of a schmozzle here. Joshua Chin has dropped back to 5th place. I am not entirely sure what happened to the Indianapolis 500 champion. I've gone back. He may have gotten a slowdown, but absolutely falling like a stone.
Yeah, and Justin Kirby also having some issues going through the kitty litter back there as well. So not a clean start to the race here for the HPD field.
No, not at all. And it looks like Kirby, too, got a little bit of a slowdown there, potentially. So that is sending him right to the back of the order. He's going to have to fight his way up. Just a quick note, we don't need to go to it at all, but Joshua Collins had a little bit of a spin coming under the Dunlop Bridge, and that has put him all the way back.
Oh, I see one of the force cars here having an issue. Was that Zachary Brown?
Yeah, was
indeed.
It
was Zachary Brown.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it looks like, oh, good. Just taking a bit too much of the curb there, as P2 and GT1 is certainly on here. Have a look at this. We've got a big defense going on here from Eric Smith. He's got a huge train of cars behind him, made up 4 positions off the start, and it is an absolute draft train in the GT1s as Kevin Hill's really pressuring the back of him there.
It's a draft train for everybody but Christian Chandler, who has just leaped out in front of these guys. But Eric Smith, man, he's going to have his hands full of that old school looking Corvette there.
Oh, yeah, he is. And I believe that was Lynn Kinchlow going a little bit wide there in the background. You could see that. Looks like Justin Morton may have something to say about that 3rd place, potentially. He looks like he's got a very good run on Kevin Hill. Not going to make the move going down the straightaway quite yet. This battle just keeps coming back and forth and back and forth.
The drivers have to be very wary of slowdowns here around Le Mans. That's what got Joshua Chin really crossed up, as there's another spinner in the HPDs out of the Arnage corner. That is Zach Brown once again. He had a problem at the 2nd Mulsanne chicane, taking a bit too much curb. I'm wondering if the same thing happened to him there at Arnage.
Could be, may have a little bit of a setup that's not liking that curbing. It can certainly come back to bite you a little bit here. Lots of draft trains starting to develop all over the track, all over, as you can imagine, as we watch Brown. There we go. That's the GT3s. That's a good little battle. That's Stevenson and Walker. That's the battle for P1 in class.
Battle between the teammates right there, and Porsche 911 GT3 Cup. I noted this during the international region broadcast. These cars, they're basically what GT3 was originally intended to be. Basic, very close to stock, not much to adjust, but of course the GT3 regulations have evolved way beyond that in recent years, and Porsche Cup continuing in this vein, a very competitive class as the slipstream is on there into the Porsche curves for Mark Stevenson. Very difficult part of the circuit, especially in these cars with the engine hanging out over the rear axle. Swings like a pendulum.
Well, and with that in mind, Reese, knowing that these guys are teammates, I have to wonder just how much strategy is coming into play with this. We didn't talk about it at the top, but this is a 2.5 hour pretty much race, and I gotta think some fuel saving can be had here from Stevenson.
For sure, the fuel save is massive here at Le Mans, and in the HPD class in the international region, Thomas Hinz had the same kind of problem Joshua Chin has, losing positions on the opening lap, but with the draft, Hinz was able to pit 2 laps later than everyone else in his classes. That's a slowdown for Mark Stevenson out of the final chicane. He's going to lose second to Austin Espity.
Oh my goodness, slowdown's really coming to bite.
And also on top of that, I thought just for a second up at the front of the HPDs that Waring was going to try to make a move on Jason Henrique, but I'm wondering if maybe he's starting to think a little bit about that fuel saving that you guys were just talking about. And also Joshua Chin starting to make a little bit of a reappearance in his mirrors, starting to claw his way back after his first lap troubles.
Indeed, Chin only about 1.3 seconds back from this leading pair. He will get enough of a slipstream to do a little bit of drafting there. Not nearly as much, though, as Waring. I think the way Waring's driving this a little bit, you saw just how off the throttle he was. I think he is definitely thinking about the long game here, Adam.
I mean, it would make sense. I mean, the HPDs, of course, you know, they're going to be... you know, they're not exactly known as fuel sippers either. So any little bit that you could save and cut down on the potential of even seconds in the pit lane here later on in the race is going to pay dividends. And you know, they're definitely playing the long game here at this point.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a situation where they're not going to see a lot of massive aggression coming out here early, but rest assured, when we get down into the closing 20 minutes of this race, it will come fast and furious. Let's jump back to P3 in that GT1 category. This is that battle we were keeping an eye on with Smith, Hill, Morton, Waring, and all pretty much back the way to Quinn and Bennett.
Yeah, Kevin Hill losing out a bit to Eric Smith over the last couple of laps and falling into the clutches of the 2 Corvettes of Morton and Walling here. Let's see how they go down to Indianapolis. This is a very difficult part of the circuit. You've got to be careful of getting on the brakes into the left hand up. Very easy for the rear end to swing around, and you've got to be careful not to take too much curb through there either. Otherwise, you'll just be sent around, possibly into the wall. There was a hint of a move there from Justin Morton at Arnage, but that corner, traditionally not a passing opportunity. It's better to wait for this straight coming up to the Porsche curves.
Indeed, I think maybe, Reese, that could have just been a little bit of psych out that Morton was trying to throw on Hill, maybe just try to get into his head a little bit.
Yeah, that's always something you can do. The psychological games here, but Kevin Hill is holding on very nicely into the Porsche curves, and got to be careful of that wall there on the outside of these left-handers. That's a very recent addition to the track, only in the last 4 years or so. Didn't used to be a wall there. You could take a lot of curb on the outside, but that wall was introduced for safety reasons, particularly after Jan Magnussen's crash in the real-life race. It was, it's still a fantastic part of the circuit, but looks like the positions are going to be staying exactly the same as they come up to the line.
Everybody's seeming to have a lot of self-control here, although a little bit of wiggle there coming out of that final chicane from Justin Morton. That's going to cost him, I think, about 1/10 of a second as they cross over the line. You can see that gap between him and Kevin Hill just spreading out ever so slightly as they make their way up the first corner.
You know, two points I want to make out here. First, kind of going back to the fuel deal, is that in these GT1s, I know it used to be set up like that. I haven't followed the changes too much to the cars the last couple of years, but they used to be geared to maybe about an hour's worth of fuel. Now, I don't know if that's still the case, but it's going to be something to watch out for to see just how far these guys can go. And the other part of that, too, that I want to bring up is we're seeing a lot of guys get these slowdowns. And with the slowdowns are oftentimes going to come with a 1X. We talked about the incident limit earlier, but we didn't talk about how easy it is to get incidents here at Le Mans, and that 26X limit that these guys have can easily be reached in a 2.5-hour race. So you already got some guys that might be on edge about their incident limit count.
For sure, for sure. We're going to have to jump back up to the HPD lead, though, here. This is Andrew Waring and Jason Henrique. Looks like Waring backed off a little bit going down into the Mulsanne hairpin, but that back off has allowed for Joshua Chin, your pole sitter in this category, to catch back up. They are there, but it looks like we've had a problem for Brian Bennett in those GT1s.
We're going to get a replay for this one, see what happened to Brian Bennett. This is coming down into the first Mulsanne chicane. He's right there at the back of that train, but looks like he might have gotten crossed up over the curb there. Yep, there we go. A little bit too much curb can really bite, especially in those GT1s, the Corvette with that massive V8 engine over the front axle. Once the rear end goes, very hard to recover. So that is a great time loss that Brian Bennett will be absolutely ruining.
Yeah, he had Liam Quinn in front of him, and I think that Liam kind of slowed up a little bit more than what he was anticipating just with the traffic, and I think that kind of helped him hit the curb, and you're right, that'll upset the car, especially those Corvettes, that being front-engined and everything.
Well, now, question to both you and Reese on that, Adam. When you're talking about that setup, is there anything that the drivers can really do in the setups to get the car to handle over the curbs better, or is that just such an inherent problem to the Corvette that you've just got to deal with it?
I'll let Reese go first on that one. What do you think, Reese?
Well, Brian McGreevy, we're just taking a look at there in the HPD field. 7th place, big defense there through the Porsche curves. But I reckon I'm not too familiar with the GT1s. I have driven a couple of races in them in the past, but you can adjust the bump and rebound settings on the suspension. You know, making it handle nicely over the curbs, very important here at Le Mans. You've got to kind of balance it, though, with the high-speed stability recommended in the faster parts of the circuit, like the Porsche curves. So there is a lot that the drivers can do to make the car handle easier over the curbs, but you might not want to do it all the time.
Yeah, I kind of look at it kind of a little. Oh, who's that spinning there in the Force HPD?
That's Chris Yattito, I believe, that's had a little bit of a spin there.
It looked like he maybe got in there a little bit hot, but I only caught the front glimpse of it here. He's coming out of the last Ford chicane, heading toward
Very
Dunlop.
bumpy in that braking zone.
It is. I mean, you got to be really careful, really smooth. Just using all the track like he's supposed to, and then does he just get up? Yeah, he just gets upset under braking, it looks like. Maybe a little bit too much rear brake bias?
Yeah, a little bit too much rear bias indeed. These cars don't have ABS, remember.
Right. Okay, so get back to the Corvettes. What I was saying is, you know, I look at them a lot like the Lotus 79s. You can dial some of that out. We know a lot more people might be familiar with driving those nowadays. You can dial some of it out, but at the end of the day, it's going to be on the driver to not hit the curves too aggressively. If you hit the curves a little bit too much, I mean, it's going to go around on you because you can only dial so much of it out. So you really just have to be careful and know the limitation of the car. Like Christian here, I mean, you'll watch him. If he gets on the curves, he's not doing it suddenly. He's doing it very smoothly. And if you do it right, you can actually use them to your advantage, but you got to be smooth.
Well, Christian Challoner certainly is one of the smoothest drivers here. We continue to ride on board with him as he has gotten that gap in the GT1 category up to a whopping 6 seconds at this point over Eric Smith. And yeah, there, Adam, you can really see that smoothness that you were talking about.
Yeah, and you know, of course, Challoner, I mean, he's been around now a couple of years. He's making... Yeah, it looks like there's an HPD there that's missing its front end.
Collins.
Yeah. Josh Collins had some connection problems just before the race, too.
What happened to him there?
Yeah, it looked like it might have been the S's after Dunlop. Oh, it just gets crossed up under braking. I just saw it and nosed it into the Armco.
He ran a little bit wide into the left-hander, and, you know, the track being the way it is at the moment, there's not much grip out there off the racing line, so that HPD, it's obviously an LMP2 set up very stiff, ready to produce all that downforce and get the speed through the high turns, so if you get a little bit crossed up, that car's just going to jerk sideways. But Eric Smith still holding on to second in the GT1 class as Hill and Morton really pressuring him here into Mulsanne.
Yeah, and it seems like every time we look away, either advantage goes to Hill over Smith or Morton over Hill, just seesawing back and forth this entire time. The sun obviously overhead here starting to set ever so slightly. That will change up the conditions out here on track. Morton looking like he's got a good run. Don't think he's going to be close enough or gutsy enough to make that move going into Indianapolis, but he might just go for something. No, indeed, he backs off a little bit. Light dab on the brakes for all drivers in that right-hander and down into the corner. The Indianapolis left-hander, modeled, of course, after the race we were at last time out, the Indianapolis 500.
But of course, this part of the circuit is public roads, so that section down through Indianapolis has been a feature of the landscape for, I would say, at the very least, hundreds of years. But the banking, of course, very reminiscent of that fantastic Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's obviously probably gotten some reprofiling work done over the years to keep that character of the circuit. This part of the circuit, the Porsche Curves, was introduced in 1976, I believe. Very old part of the circuit as well, but definitely newer than a lot of the parts of the circuit we see. And just right there, that curb on the exit of the Porsche Curves, like with the exit to Tetra Rouge onto the Mulsanne Straight, you have to get the car back on track before the end of the curb, otherwise you'll be slapped with a slowdown.
And we've already seen what those slowdowns can do to these drivers. Very aggressive riding of the curb there for Kevin Hill, but Eric Smith able to pull away ever so slightly as they get on to the start-finish straight there. Hill in the Aston Martin, he is currently the highest running Aston. Everybody else all the way through fifth in that category. They are all driving those old school Corvettes.
Yeah, the Corvette, very popular GT1 car. It was the first GT1 car on the iRacing service. It's been a part of iRacing since about 2009, 2010. The Aston Martin, a relatively new addition to the service, but everyone still keeping their faith there. There's a good amount of brand allegiance in sports car racing. Same is true for GT1, and these cars have battled in real life at Le Mans. It's been it was fantastic watching those races in the mid to late 2000s, early 2010s with these magnificent machines. You got the throaty rumble of the Corvette and the screaming wail of the Aston Martin V12, and a slight lock-up for Eric Smith over the curb into the first Mulsanne chicane. This might give a run here to Kevin Hill.
He's certainly thinking about it. You saw under braking how much he was able to close. Looks like Smith is able to just keep a little bit of legs in front of him, but as they get up to speed, cranking into about 175 miles an hour, not really able to fully close it in. I think Hill maybe is still in a little bit of fuel-saving mode.
Yep, fuel saving, of course, huge strategy element here at Le Mans. I did mention before that Thomas Hinz in the international region able to extend his first stint by 2 laps through drafting and fuel saving, and you know, any fuel that you save now is going to pay dividends later on in the race. A little bit less time spent in the pits, maybe giving you a slightly fresher car at the very end. It'd be interesting to see how tires work out as well. If I can bring in some insight from the international region as well. In the Porsche Cup class, Cameron Dance was the favorite to win, but he chewed through his tires, and so Thomas O'Leary was able to take better care of his rubber and bring it home in the lead, with Dance having to pit for tires in his final stop. So look out for that possibly.
Yeah, that is certainly that's going to come into it. We're also been hearing a little bit just about the pit strategy here. Estimated that we'll be able to get about 12 laps worth of fuel in these GT1 machines, but the Aston's a little bit more thirsty than the Corvettes, believe it or not. They're looking at maybe about 11 laps, so if anybody's able to eke it out a little bit more, that can help. But we got to jump up to the lead for the HPD as this battle between Enrique and Chin and Waring getting more and more explosive. Chin finally clawing back past Andrew Waring, and now Waring trying to make a move going down the long straightaway.
Yes, well, looks like he's just lifting off a little bit there behind Joshua Chin. Just a slight lift of the throttle, a few more milliliters or ounces, if you're that way inclined, of fuel saved down this straight, and a big lift into the first Mulsanne chicane. But Joshua Chin continuing to motor his way on forward. Jason Henrique now under a big threat here for the lead of the top class.
Yeah, I think Joshua Chin has a little bit to prove here. He is a phenomenal driver, and no matter what kind of machinery you put him in on the iRacing service. But I think getting that slowdown early definitely got a little bit under his collar. He is fighting hard, getting that gap to down about under 0.4 of a second. No moves here from the top three. And important to note, the gap that they have opened up to the cars behind them, it is a staggering 17 seconds back to Brian Barnes in fourth place. So this is really turning into a three-man race here today, Reese.
Yeah, absolutely is. I mean, if you get an early advantage here at Le Mans, you can certainly keep it. There's Joshua Chin in the draft, and he pulls out for a little bit of a move down at Mulsanne corner, but has to back out of it. That kink on the entry to the corner can really bite you if you get it wrong. But Chin's going to have another chance here down the public road section towards Indianapolis and Arnage. And Indianapolis in the HPD, very challenging. It's pretty much flat out through the fast right-hander, and you get on the brakes just as you're unwinding the steering to go straight towards the banked left-hander. And definitely seen in the past that if you get your brake bias wrong, if you get your driving technique wrong, you will go spearing off there. So can't afford to make a mistake at that section.
Yeah, we've seen many times on the sim and in real life that is a very, very easy place to make a mistake. But all three of our leaders here piloting through it quite expertly is now they make their way down the straight towards the Porsche curves here. Henrique continuing to lead from Chin and Roaring. They are currently working on their sixth lap. And important to note, they have got not a whole lot of track up in front of them before they start to run into those Porsche Cup cars.
Yeah, Jason Wallet is the first car that they are going to come into contact with here through the Porsche curves. And if you're in an HPD, you definitely can't afford to come up to traffic in that section. You can lose seconds of lap time, but it looks like they're going to get him here on the run down to the final chicane. At the very least, Henrique is, and Wallet going wide there to let our overall leaders through. So, I mean, not really a necessary thing to do, but I think our top three certainly welcome it.
Oh, no, for sure. And I got to say, Wallet, I think, just recognized that he was a little bit too far back from Rob Powers, wanted to play the long game. Little bit of an off line there, forced to be taken for Roaring as he makes his way by Powers, but it didn't cost him too much time. Chin, though, very good run through the first of the Dunlop chicanes there. He's going to be right up behind the tailpipe of our leader, Jason Henrique. They're coming up to more traffic, though. Only about a second up the road. That is Brophy and Schmeier locked in their own little battle.
Yeah, and this is going to be the first time they're really encountering traffic as far as actually guys running with each other. And, you know, I hope Brophy didn't run far enough out there that he got himself a slowdown. That looked like that might have been a little close, but Schmeier also given some room here as they run down the first part of the Mulsanne Straight. So all in all, everybody handling traffic pretty well here.
Yeah, they really are. A lot of these drivers are so used to doing this. Everybody has a lot of multi-class experience and a lot of respect among all of the classes. Everybody knowing how to stay out of the way the best that they can. Chin continues to hold back here. Roaring, maybe taking a little bit of a look. Did Chin get a slowdown?
Yeah, looks like it. He might have taken a little bit too much curb there in the second part of that Mulsanne chicane. Yeah, I just saw it. He went right over the curb, which would have triggered the slowdown there. So Joshua Chin still having trouble there with keeping it within the bounds of the racetrack. But fortunately, he will have a double draft here behind Waring and Henrique, which means a little bit more fuel saving for him. That said, it didn't seem like there was much of a battle going on between the three of them. They're all focusing on just lifting off and trying their best to save fuel.
Yeah, I think it pretty much just puts him back at about the same spot he was at about lap 3. So I think he'll be all right here. He'll get those. I guess seconds back in a matter of just a few, maybe even half a lap. If I could talk, that would be fantastic.
I feel you there, Adam. But no, I think you're right. I think Chin is just very content to be where he is. And indeed,
here he goes. Here he goes. He's going to try to make this move around Waring, get back into second place. Waring there, he lost a lot of time trying to get around that lap car to Enrique. And so both those guys are going to have a little bit of ground to make up. But still, I really think, I know we're going to harp on it here for a while. I really think fuel saving is still the name of the game here. So I'm not expecting too big of moves at this point.
No, nor I at this point as we watch on board with Andrew Waring. I think it'll be actually pretty telling if we can stay here. Let's keep an eye on that dashboard. Let's see what those rev counters looks like. See if we can tell if he's doing a little bit of lifting. Yeah, barely coming up into sixth gear there. A little bit. You can see that feathering. Yeah, I think that is certainly a little bit of lifting and a little bit of just coasting going into the Porsche curves to make sure the car is slowed down properly.
Hitting that curb there through the right-hander. It's absolutely essential that you keep it nice and tight through the Porsche curves because it can make or break your lap. In fact, most any corner here can make or break your lap, particularly down here through the final chicanes. Jason Enrique has really been given an advantage here with these lap cars, and I think that's the reason why Joshua Chin wasted no time getting past Andrew Waring. He knows that he wants some clear air there to get back behind Enrique and get back into the draft.
Yeah, exactly. And that gap has ballooned out to about 1.8 seconds at this point, and they have cleared the last of those Porsche drivers. James Walker, your leader in that category. So they've got a good amount of clear track all the way up to the road. The last driver in the GT1 category, Lynn Kinchlow, currently just going on the bend on the final straight before the Mulsanne hairpin.
Tell you what, a bit further back in the HPD class is also a battle going on for 8th. Chris Yatito has made his way past Brian McGreevy, and he's got Nick Kuhn very close behind him here coming through the opening part of the lap. They've got some traffic themselves, the dog bear car of Jess Schmeier, and having to really back out there was Chris Yatito. He didn't want to go for the move at that section, but opening up here to Brian McGreevy, who gets up the inside of the Tetra Rouge, but gets into the back almost of Jeff Schmeier, and through to the front of that pack goes Nick Kuhn. This is crazy.
I'm absolutely amazed there that McGreevy didn't spear into somebody, able to gather that car back up under him. They all get together here. It looks like Yatito may want a little bit of action. He's going to poke his nose to the inside as they go ready for the braking zone of the first chicane. No, he's going to think better of it. Fall back into line. Now maybe McGreevy's going to have a look on Nick Kuhn. No, they're all going to stay nice and orderly through the first chicane on the Mulsanne.
I would say that would classify as a changing the underwear kind of moment.
Code Brown, for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, we even heard him come over the radio, McGreevy, and just let out an audible whoo as he was done with it. So I think he definitely may need to have a little bit of change, but I don't think he's looking very close. He's got some good top line speed at the end of these straights, but backing off. Very wide there is Nick Kuhn. But looks like the second apex through the chicane. Oh, is that a slowdown there for McGreevy?
Looks like it. McGreevy, once again, another car that's been taken by the second apex in these chicanes down the Mulsanne. It's difficult to sight your turn in these things, especially with how quick they are through the corners. You turn in just a little bit too early, and that's how it goes down. So McGreevy back to the back of that pack. Nick Kuhn holding on.
We were talking a few minutes ago, if you remember, about possible trouble through Indianapolis in the HPDs. Well, Jason Enrique just made a little trip through the kitty litter. He's able to hold on to the lead, but you got Chin and Waring right there. And this is the exact scenario you were talking about, DJ.
Is indeed, gets down onto the brakes, carries a little bit too much speed into the corner. Very good job to gather that back up. That requires a light left foot to be able to keep that from going fully into the wall and locking up. Didn't lose that much time, but the gap is down to about 0.5 of a second.
One thing about these HPDs too, with the majors, of course, as tradition, they do get one faster pair. As we're going to switch over to Wallet and Brophy here in the Porsches. I believe that is Brophy making the move around Wallet. In the HPDs, you get a little bit of floor damage and stuff like that in those cars. So you got to manage that faster pair, and hopefully you have it checked off before you make your first stop. You might want to try to save that for later. But that's the kind of incident that might give you a little bit of floor damage and trigger some. Trigger that.
Hey, the reason, as we go to a battle in GT1 here, Hill and Morton back together. I just took a look back at Jason Brophy. He had a spin at the first Mulsanne chicane. That's the reason why he was down behind Wallet in the first place. He was holding on very nicely to 5th place before that.
Yeah, doing a good job, but as we continue to watch this battle, important for viewers to know that Morton did get by Hill for a little bit there on track. Not sure exactly how he lost position back to him. Pokes his nose to the inside there ever so slightly, just trying to see if he can get Hill to commit to a defensive line, put him offline a little bit into the sweeper before Indianapolis. Both cars heavy onto the brakes, able to pilot through nice and easy. You can see Eric Smith there leaving the screen in front of you. Remember, they were running pretty close with him before, but Smith has been able to open up roughly a 3-second gap at this point.
He's doing very nicely. There is Eric Smith holding on to second. Kevin Hill using all of the apron on the side of the road here. Another recent addition to the Le Mans circuit. Used to be that there was just grass on the edge of the road beyond the dashed painted lines, but now there's a little bit more space for drivers to work with. And the GT1s, they rely on mechanical grip more than aerodynamic grip, but through these fast corners, there's still a bit of aero wash to deal with here, as we see Justin Morton there just losing out a little bit of understeer through those fast corners towards the end of the lap. Christian Challoner is in absolutely no trouble up at the front. He's not facing any of the issues that these guys have, and it's a pretty sedate race out there for Christian.
Oh, we've had an incident there. That's Jason Enrique going wide at Mulsanne. He has given up the lead here, folks. Just missed the braking zone. Adam, let's go back and check out this replay.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one here. Coming down, got Chin in tow, Waring still back there. All three of them back in a pack like they were. Way too hot. I think he was more mirror driving than anything right there, and that's just a corner that you do not want to miss. And he'll have to fight his way back up there to get back up to that lead pack. I mean, he fell back enough where you have to worry about if he's still going to be able to be in their draft.
Very, very true, although I do want to give some credit to Jason after that. You saw those red brake lights, that quick slam on the brake while he was still on tarmac, and then immediately released it when he got off onto the grass. That is the sign of a heads-up driver who knows how that HPD performs. Did not want to be hard onto the brakes on the grass, as he knew that would just send him straight into the barriers. So no damage to the Forge Racing Pro 2 driver right now, but still a lot of emotional damage and damage in terms of time. 1.7 seconds back of second place Andrew Waring right now.
Yeah, and I'm watching Enrique now, and he might be driving with a little bit of what we call the red mist after a mistake. I think he's getting really, really aggressive. In fact, he's going to decide to go ahead. Oh, there's a little bit of a fake out. I thought he might decide to go ahead and try to make that trip down pit lane there for a second.
Yeah, that is a typical line there at Le Mans in Sim World. Brian Barnes now starting to come under some pressure from Andrew Wood and Lyndon Swaby. I was just going to pipe up because Kevin Hill got a slowdown coming onto the Tetra Rouge section. So Justin Morton has made his way by him, and the gap is quite big there.
Yeah, it is there. You can see it. That's Hill. He's actually under assault from, I believe that is Liam Quinn. Liam Quinn able to pull off the draft, get by, going down into the Mulsanne hairpin. So a slowdown penalty costing Kevin Hill 2 positions here pretty early in the race.
Yeah, made a mistake at the second Mulsanne chicane as well, did Kevin Hill. He was way offline through that section, so this has not been a profitable lap for the Aston Martin driver. So third place is a very long way away for him.
Yeah, it really is. He's going to have a lot of work to do. 3.5 seconds up the road, as you said, and that massive gap with Challoner, 13 seconds from first to second. So Quinn here, as we watch him in fourth, holding him off pretty well here. He is up 4 positions from his starting position of 8th, so a good race for Liam. Hoo-hoo, nearly into the back there, did Kevin Hill.
Goodness me. Yeah, that braking zone for Arnage, it's the slowest corner on the circuit, but it's very easy to lock up and go deep into there, especially with that harsh curb on the outside. Very lucky to stay out of the back of the Kinetic Corvette.
Very lucky indeed, and I think he learned his lesson a little bit. You can see him backing off a little bit as they make their way through the Porsche curves right now. And, you know, Reese, you were talking about earlier how these curves were added back in 1971. One of the interesting things about our viewers may recognize in Ford versus Ferrari, the movie done a couple of years ago, but we've got to jump back around here, I think, before I get into that anecdote, as Waring getting a little bit sideways coming off of Mulsanne.
Yeah, he's still really pressuring Joshua Chin here on the run down to Mulsanne, and I think Chin will be ruining that mistake from Jason Enrique, but here we go. On the run into Indianapolis, Waring on the side there of Joshua Chin, and Chin just lifting off there. There's no sense in trying to push the issue into that fast right-hand. It's just too dangerous.
It's too dangerous, and I've got to think that Chin doesn't want to be running in perfectly clean air for too long here. Wants to get into a little bit of that fuel-saving game if he can, and now he'll be in the catbird seat to do so. Jason Enrique, you can see him there on the back of your screen, 3.4 seconds down the road, so gaining a little bit of time back, but not enough to make this work.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, he's
not.
continuing to fall back. I mean, I think we were right when he had that issue, lost the draft. But, you know, the other thing, too, is, you know, you bring up the fuel saving again with Chin and not wanting to be in the clean air, is Joshua Chin's already had to try to re-catch the top 2 twice in this race. So he has had to burn the most fuel out of Waring and before Enrique's incident there, Enrique himself, too. So that might actually make the top 3 here pretty even on fuel after everything's said and done with everything they've gone through here the last, I guess we're getting pretty close. Well, now we're already past 2-hour mark here with 2 hours to go. That one came and went, didn't it, guys?
Time flies when you're watching good racing. And there you see Chin.
Slow down.
Oh, man, had to slow down.
In the second last corner, Waring just vaulted across the curb, and again, that's a case of turning in too early, and he's got to be careful here because the HPD produces the majority of its downforce through the floor. So going over that harsh curb, he's just clattered over it. He'll be monitoring his pace to see if he's gotten floor damages. Looks like Justin Kirby is vaulting down the order at the moment. There might have been a problem for the number 43. Oh yeah, he is in the wall coming out of the final corner, and he's getting that thing back going. Looks like a spin out of the Ford chicane, and he caught just a little bit of the gravel there. The HPD does have traction control, but it's not going to save you at that point.
Yeah, he's the second guy in the last 10 minutes I've seen do that. Zach Brown had a similar incident just a little while ago, and you know, I think a large part of that too, well, something that could happen as we go along is, and he's still having an issue getting going again, just waiting on the traffic to clear. Is how much gravel is going to be starting to get kicked up there on the exit of the chicane? Are we going to have more people breaking the back ends loose there on the slick gravel?
Very well could, but we're going to jump over here. This is Brian McGreevy coming into the pits. He is the first of any of our HPD machines, and indeed pretty much anybody else on track. Joshua Collins, I think, came in a little bit earlier. That looks like a fuel-only stop for McGreevy. Stationary in the box for 22.7 seconds. He's going to be out and on his way. He'll come out in 11th place in that top category.
And as Joshua Chin here under big pressure from Andrew Waring once again. The draft was still there for Waring after his slowdown, and Chin just dipping it into the gravel on the exit of Mulsanne. Waring's going to come back at him here. Is he going to go for the move? He certainly is. It looks like he's not interested in the fuel-saving game at the moment, but looks like a carbon copy of a couple of laps ago. Waring up the inside into Indianapolis, and Joshua Chin just yielding to him. Again, no sense in trying to fight a move like that.
No, none at all. Chin very much playing the long game, and I think some of that aggressiveness you saw out of him early was just a desire to be able to keep up with the leaders and not move that position. But in the GT1s, we've had another pitter, Eric Smith, coming into the pits. This is the first of any of our GT cars to make their way down pit lane.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see if he actually takes tires. You bring up the McGreevy going with the no tire stop of the HPD. People are going to do that here. Le Mans not exactly the hardest on tires, as we do have a battle again for the lead between Chin and Waring at the top of the HPDs. But think back about 3-4 years ago, maybe even a little further than that. It was the last race here before majors started actually doing the multi-class racing. Clark Archer, my old teammate in riding shotgun, won Le Mans in the GT1 without taking tires the entire race. So it can be done here.
It certainly can, and the main reason for that is in sports car racing, when you take a pit stop, fuel and tires are done separately, at least in the HPD, and I'm sure for the GT1s and the Porsche Cups. If you decide to take tires, that's an extra 15 seconds added onto your time. So if you can afford not to take tires, definitely avoid it.
Indeed, and now we've had another HPD coming down the pit lane. That's Jason Enrique coming down there, your former leader. Hopefully this will serve as a little bit of a reset for him. We've talked about some of his red mist that he's been experiencing. There is Brian McGreevy. That's the last driver out. And just remember, stationary in the box for about 22 seconds. So let's see how that compares. Eric Smith there out and on his way.
So Enrique obviously not taking tires there in the HPD. You can very easily double stint the tires here at Le Mans, even triple stint them, depending on how cold the track is. And just a neutral first gear now, waiting for the fuel to finish getting into the car. It's about 30 seconds for a full stop here in the HPDs, and Enrique now out, and that is 29.1 second stop. So Brian McGreevy comparatively short on the stop time.
Could he potentially be going for a little bit of a short stint in the middle here, but we're going to jump back up to the lead. This is Waring and Chin working their way around Lynn Kinchlow in that Corvette. Looks like Chin's got it covered. Kinchlow now able to slide back into that draft. Had to wait until he was clear of Kinchlow. Chin making his way through the second chicane there on the Mulsanne, and they come back out again onto the long straight.
We also just had a good battle for a little while between Wood and Barnes behind these guys for 5th and 6th on the outside of the top 5. Looks like Wood was able to get around Barnes. So a couple of great battles in the HPDs right now. Of course, Brian Barnes, a long time people remember too, used to drive the popsicle cars before all the rules and everything with paint jobs came out. So still drives the blue and yellow machine. You can always find Brian Barnes driving a blue and yellow car in any race I think I've ever seen him run in.
Well, everybody's got their colors that they like to run. I know mine are black, yellow, and red. Each has its own significant meaning, so it's always kind of fun to see what each driver has in store for that. But I want to jump us back actually over to a very tight battle here between Quinn and Hill. This is for third place in GT1, making their way around. They just got by Jason Brophy in one of the Porsche cars, and that battle's going to come to a stop as both drivers come into the pits.
Yeah, and Challoner actually in front of these guys as well. So definitely GT1 pit stops in full swing right now.
Well, it is kind of like we said, this is the 11th lap. That's what we were expecting for a lot of these GT1 machines. Let's see if anybody's been able to milk this out a little bit more. Looks like I think that maybe Travis Warling is going to be the only one that I'm seeing as of right now to be able to go a little bit extra.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Bennett, Hutchison, Steele, and Kinchlow to come in for a stop as well. It looks like Bennett's bringing it in, and we can probably expect the drivers behind him too as well. There we go. All of our GT1 runners, of course, save for that driver that you mentioned just before going for that extra lap. Challoner now out of the pits and remaining in the lead. 32.9 second stop for him, but Travis Warling, the only car in the GT1 class to go an extra lap here, so he's played the fuel saving game pretty well so far. And there we go. Morton out in front of Hill. That is a quick stop there for the Corvette driver.
Indeed. Looking at that, Hill had a very, very slow time in the box with the 32. Well, looking at that, honestly, Morton had a 33 in the box, so I think that's all down to pit entry and pit exit there for the driver of the number 9, just able to get down on the binders and get back underway a little bit better.
I think he short-filled the tank as well, because he's the only driver in GT1 so far to have a pit stop under 30 seconds. It's a 28.4 second stop time for him. So he's obviously decided that he's saved a bit of fuel there in the first stint. He can gain a little bit of time on his competitors through less time stopped in the lane.
Most certainly, and that's a good way to do it, but he will have to pay the piper later on if that is the case. But that draft battle looking like it's staying a lot of what we've seen before. Separated out a little bit more, though. 0.7 seconds back from Morton to Driscoll. Hill about a second and a half back. Quinn about a second and a half back. So everybody within distance, they're going to have to hustle a little bit to get maximum effectiveness of that draft, but keeping it nice and close in GT1.
Lyndon Swaby's brought it in and brought it out in the HPD class. Also coming in for stops there, Chris Yatito, Zachary Brown, and Brian Barnes. And it looks to me like Barnes has decided to take tyres on this first pit stop. That's an interesting choice.
That is an interesting choice, but I do have to wonder if that could pay off in spades. You know, we're about an hour and a half down in this race as is, or about 45 minutes or so down into this race as is. And with as much time as there is to go, the sun is starting to set a little bit. Temperatures will get cooler, and so maybe double stinting on the second half of this could save him.
Certainly the track is nice and cool as, sorry for talking over you there, Adam.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We were talking earlier before the race. I mean, this is going to be a great shot here over the course of the next hour. 68 degrees right now at the track temp at 72. And that sun's, you mentioned, only going to get lower in the sky. Sunset in virtual standard time here tonight is 9:59 p.m. So we have, according to the clock, an hour and 10 minutes before that sun falls below the horizon.
Ooh, as we watch there, that was Christian Challoner, your GT1 leader, making the best to get out of his way of Chin and Waring, your overall leaders in the HPDs. Chin looking like he's trying to tuck up on a little bit of a draft. Is he going to try to make a move going into the Porsche curves? Oh. I have to imagine this means they're both coming into the pits, and Chin wants to be ahead. They're going to be side by side going into the first one.
Oh, and Waring there, holding it round the outside, taking advantage of the downforce. What a fantastic battle there through the first part of the Porsche curves. Joshua Chin tried his best to make it work, but ultimately couldn't. That's what I love about prototypes. As I've said in the past, the faster you go, the faster you go. The more speed you carry, the more downforce you get, and Waring is going to lead the way into the pits, but Joshua Chin's going to push him really hard here on pit entry.
Indeed he is, and my suspicions were right on that. The Chin wanted to be the one in the lead. They both come down to that excruciatingly slow pit lane speed limiter. Now it's going to come down to if any of these drivers decide to underfuel a little bit, how well they hit their marks. They are very, very close. They have to crawl on by here. That pit lane speed limit about 38 miles an hour. Passing by, I believe that is Travis Warling into the pits finally. So here they go into their boxes right now. Did either of them miss it? No, they're both on their marks.
Now, are either of them going to try and go for tyres in this stop? They'll lose out quite a bit, but if one of them takes tyres, that means the other will have the lack of benefit of quite a bit of clear air and no chance to save fuel. You see Chin there cranking the wheel all the way over to the left for a quick exit out of the pits. The pace car is ghosted in the pits, but best to be safe there. Get back out into the lane. It looks like Waring has beaten him out.
Yeah, beat him out by about 0.5 of a second there and stationary in the box. So they'll come out. Gap on track is going to be about 1 second. Jason Enrique will be able to move on by. He will be up into third again as this starts all to come back into play here.
And of course, Enrique has fallen way back from his troubles earlier on. I mean, he's not really inside of these guys, as this is really turning into a battle here between Waring and Chin for the rest of the day. They just got to stay within sight of each other here, I think, at this point. But man, I tell you what, that was a great pit stop by Waring, with Chin literally looked like he was pushing Waring into his pit box, and still came out that far behind where Waring is.
Very impressive indeed, but we have seen Joshua Chin be able to put the pedal down when he needs to. Only about 0.8 of a second gap in between the two. He will be able to get a good toe there if he wants it. And there you see him kicking off one of those cones. Chin definitely pushing as hard as he can.
You got to be careful about hitting those cones. They can do damage, and on top of that too, you know, that's also the limit for something, and we've seen a lot of people pass those limits here today.
Yeah, we very, very much have. Want to actually jump you back as Chin continues to do this. Let's go back to P3 and the GT1s. This is Steve Driscoll starting to make a little bit of a run with Justin Morton. There you can see it diving into Mulsanne. Driscoll having a very good one, and ooh, that's Kevin Hill going very wide in the background.
It got a little too hot through there. Almost took a trip into the gravel, but was able to stay out of it. So thankfully, no more gravel getting kicked up in the Mulsanne hairpin. But that's still getting interesting.
Yes, it is, and it looks like Driscoll holding that 0.4 of a second advantage the best that he can. But I'm keeping an eye. It looks like Andrew Waring had a bad run out of Mulsanne. That has allowed Chin to be directly up his gearbox as they make the way towards the blast to Indianapolis. Chin looks like he's holding back a little bit, but he is definitely back in the catbird seat.
Yeah, but he's also lifting. It doesn't seem like he really wants to make that move, switching back into that fuel-saving mode. He definitely had the opportunity, I think, to get around Waring, just chose not to.
Yeah, I think he's pretty content to be where he is. But I actually want to jump you back and give a little bit of love here to one of our Porsche GT3 drivers. This is Mark Stevenson, and we are lucky enough, I believe, to have an on board with him. Let's check this out. Well, Mark will be in for a real treat there, as he'll be able to see himself on the screen there. You can see our wonderful GSRC broadcast. And Reese, talk us through here. This is obviously one of the places on the track, well, before he goes into the chicane, where you can sort of take a breath as a driver. But looking at Mark, just talk me through a little bit what's going through his head at a moment like this.
Well, he's wiping the sweat off his brow for a start. He's obviously pushing very hard there in second place in Porsche at the moment, but yeah, there's a little bit of time here to take a rest. Just think about how you're going to tackle the rest of the track, what you're going to do when you come into the pits. You'll be checking your fuel numbers, checking your F3 black box, thinking about what your fuel usage is, how well your tires are doing. And then through into the second Mulsanne chicane, he gets another opportunity to do that down the straight. And that's the good thing about Le Mans. You've got plenty of opportunity to think about how your race is going, at least down the first half of the circuit. But once he gets out of Indianapolis and Arnage and into the Porsche curves, then it's full concentration mode once again. You obviously see Mr. Stevenson communicating to his, I would say, his teammates or his spotter, his race engineer out there, just figuring out how best to hold on to this second place.
Well, he's doing a pretty good job of it now, and that battle that we were watching in on earlier between Driscoll and Justin Morton for P2 in the GT1s going into the first chicane on the Mulsanne. Driscoll able to get by. Morton now behind him, maybe thinking about having a move, maybe thinking about doing a little bit of fuel saving.
Steve Driscoll was fifth in the pro standings coming into this race. He'll certainly be welcoming these developments, and the front end slightly getting away from him there, Adam.
Yeah, you know, a little bit of age of those tires, because I do not believe that either one of these guys took tires on that first stop. But, you know, you got to think about that too, that, yeah, you can run these tires quite a long time, double stint them, even maybe in some cases triple stint them, but you still got to take care of them. And you see him how much he's sliding. It means he's working them hard right now. It's a very tight battle between these two.
Yeah, it very much is. Morton giving up a little bit of ground there coming through Mulsanne. They've got to be a little bit careful. That is, you can see in the back of your screen, Kevin Hill jinking out to the outside, getting around Rob Powers, the slower GT3 car. He's only about 1.2 seconds back in the road, so he'll get a little bit of a nice slipstream coming down the straightaways, but he'll have to hustle a little bit more. And if these two continue to battle back and forth, could allow for Hill to be right back, or could allow for Hill to be right back into this conversation.
They do have a bit of traffic to deal with, though, here coming out of Arnage. They should get by Jason Wallet here. Yeah, there we go. He pulls over to the right-hand side of the circuit to let these cars go. It's a train of 4 GT1 cars here. Driscoll, then Morton, then Hill, and then Liam Quinn behind all of these guys. So this battle here for second place in GT1 certainly on. And when they come in for their second pit stop, it's going to be a 2-stop race at the very least for all 3 classes. Porsche Cup might have a bit of a splash and dash at the end if they can't save fuel. It's all going to be to play for coming out of the Porsche curves.
It certainly will. Still waiting on those first round of pit stops from those Porsche Cup drivers at the moment. As there you see one of them, Jason Brophy, that is 5th in class, making his way through the Corvette chicanes before they get to the Ford chicanes. And now getting there and through. Yeah, look at that. Kevin Hill already closed back down, only 0.6 of a second up the road to Justin Morton. So this turning into a 3-way battle for the podium positions here. We ride on board with Hill.
That Aston just screaming along as he heads up toward Dunlop. And yeah, man, I just like to wake up in the morning at Le Mans at 6 o'clock and see that sun just coming out and seeing something like that in front of you, thinking, I've been up all night driving and I still got to deal with this. Well, thankfully it hasn't been all night. We're actually just getting ready to see the sun set. And still, though, just as stressful as lots of traffic these guys are having to fight through here at this point.
Yeah, traffic always the great equalizer at any of these endurance races that we cover. It can really throw you for a loop if you are not careful. Coming up behind them, though, they're going to have to deal with traffic of a different kind as your leaders in the HPDs, Joshua Chin and Andrew Waring. Nothing separating them. There you can see them on the side of your screen. They're having to come into play. Little bit of moving around up there up front for Steve Driscoll, trying to break a little bit of a toe if he can of Justin Morton and Kevin Hill.
These guys won't have to worry too much about Chin and Waring here. They'll be blasting by them on the Mulsanne straight. In terms of straight line speed, the HPD and the GT1's actually very similar in clear air. The HPD's, of course, making up the advantage in the corners, allows them to get a little bit of a better run. They've both made their way past Mr. Hill there. And they're going to have to stay behind Driscoll and Morton through the second of the Mulsanne chicanes.
You know, one thing to point out, you're not going to see too much in the way of games played, but you still might see some slight things, is they're kind of going through a mix of each other's teammates here, too. A couple of Kinetic cars, a couple of Evolved Sim Sports cars, and, you know, each one knows that their teammate's back there. Trust me, they're on Discord or something like that together, and it's like, hey, move over to the left a little bit for me. Hey, move over a little bit to the right for me. Trust me, that communication's going on.
Yeah, it's a good call there, Adam, and I definitely think there was a little bit of that happening there with Steve Driscoll just trying to slow up Joshua Chin, and it worked a little bit. Chin running wide on the exit of the Mulsanne hairpin. That's going to allow for Waring to maybe get a little bit of a run here if he wants it. He is right up behind Chin's gearbox. He is going to be watching and waiting, starts to think about poking his nose to the inside. Chin goes to cover him off a little bit as they make their way down towards Indianapolis. Waring not looking like he wants to make the move, content to be here and save a good amount of fuel.
Yeah, the way Waring is popping his nose out there almost made me think of a stock car at a restrictor plate race or something like that, trying to get clean air up there. But obviously not the case. He's just trying to sight where that corner is, I think, a little bit more. And, you know,
no.
a little bit of a spin behind him. Who was that? Was an Evolved car. Driscoll.
Oh my
no.
goodness gracious. Steve Driscoll is having such a good run here. Let's go back and check out a replay of this incident if we can. Here we've got it spooling up.
Yeah, that bag, he come down here into the, I believe that was actually Solon curve. This might have happened ahead of this, maybe? I don't know, but either way, his brakes are gonna lock up here on the rear end and around he goes. Once again, a little bit too much rear brake bias. Now, this is gonna be a case where I really haven't driven these cars too much the last couple of years, but I'm wondering if some of these guys are playing around with their rear brake bias as the race is going along. So that's something to think about too as the track starts to cool off.
Certainly could be a thing. Oh, and we've had another spin. That's Warren coming through the Ford chicanes. He caught too much curb, and he is around and into the kitty litter.
Manages to get back going cleanly, though, just ahead of Justin Morton. But Jason Enrique is now right in the battle for second place again. We'll get this on the replay as well. Poor Andrew Waring, he's had an absolutely stellar drive so far there behind Joshua Chin, but these curbs and these chicanes biting at the best of times. And once again, Waring taking a little bit too much curb through that left-hander. This time it sent the rear end right around.
Yeah, he was fine on the green and blue curbs. It was once he hit those yellow bars that's really what threw the car up in the air, and he was just a passenger at that point. And this is definitely a case. I brought up that red mist thing earlier. He's got to be careful not to be too angry about that mistake, because that'll just lead to more mistakes. And now he has one mission in mind, and he's got to do it the rest of the night, and that's try to catch Joshua Chin.
He does, but he's got to worry about Jason Enrique behind him before he does that. The former leader of this race able to catch up and be right in that slipstream, bringing that gap down to about 0.2 of a second. Ooh, little bit of a squirrely line there for the both of them coming through the first chicane.
Yeah, that was close enough of Waring there. I was almost worried about slowdown for a second, but I think he stayed just outside of that limit. But that's the kind of thing he's got to be careful of. Don't let one mistake lead into more mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And just a note for our viewers, the majority, if not the majority, all of our GT3 machines have come by and into the pits right now. Order remains pretty much the same as it went in. The only real change is that Austin Espedy has been able to jump Chris Stevens during the course of that pit cycle. Stevens stationary for 94 seconds, or in the box flag to flag for 94 seconds. So I believe Stevenson and Schmeier took tires on that. Walker and Espedy did not.
Righto, so that can certainly pay dividends for the car that took tyres. You'll have a little bit fresher rubber at the end, but with the gaps between the cars in this GT3 Cup class, it can sometimes be worth it just to drive at maybe 8 or 9 tenths, something like that, just to keep your tyres in check, keep the wear down, and you'll be able to come back at the end when the track really starts cooling down. I'm actually surprised at how cool the track is in this session. When I was commentating International, the track actually started out quite warm. It was around 26, 27 degrees when the checkered flag flew. So these guys dealing with a little bit less temperature on the track, which means they're going to be a little kinder to their tires.
Yeah, they're going to be a little kinder to think about. And I have to say, if you're going to take... that's a big lock up there for Stevenson, and right off into the kitty litter. He's going to be able to save it and keep it off the wall, but that's going to cost him all sorts of time on the track. Unfortunately, I was going to say that those new tires will pay dividends maybe down the road, but after a lock up like that, that is going to wear him down just ever so slightly.
And guys, I'm starting to see more and more little mistakes like that. We saw it with Waring a few minutes ago, but I also watched Eric Smith loop it around in that same section just a little while ago too. We don't need to go look at it. It wasn't anything spectacular or anything, but seeing more and more mistakes. You really don't appreciate a 2.4-hour race until you run one. It's not like it's an endurance race where maybe if you triple stint or something like that, where you still got plenty of race before and after you and all this. This is 2.4 hours for all the marbles. I mean, it is a different mindset, and it's more of a stressful mindset, and you've got no one to count on but yourself in these as well. So these guys are already starting to get through that mid-race kind of mindset that they got to get through, and they're making mistakes right now.
And speaking of those mistakes, Stevenson had another mistake coming through Indianapolis, got the car sideways, tried to get back going, and caught Wayne Hutchinson up in the barrier. Hutchinson and Morton able to continue on a little bit, but definitely the first time I've really seen some impact into the side here. Let's check out the replay and see if we can see this. Yeah, this is Hutchinson coming down into Indianapolis. That's going to be Stevenson ahead of him.
That it is, and you'll see Stevenson just get the rear end out on the entry into the left-hander, and the Porsche, well, engine out the back there, and oh, that was very close there.
Oh, and Wayne's around again, probably because of damage from that. Yeah, he was coming around the Porsche curves and puts it into the concrete over there now. So went from bad to worse from Wayne. Of course, that's blind right there. I mean, Wayne just had no time to react. It's no fault of his, obviously, and now it's a damaged car trying to work it through.
Yeah, so this will put him on a little bit of an alternate strategy here as he comes into the pits. No doubt going to take that faster pair that we have been talking about over the course of the race. So he'll be able to get out and on as if he's got a fast car. But we're going to jump back up here. A little bit of a good battle starting to shape up. This is Kirby and McGreevy.
Kirby and Barnes as well, just up ahead in the middle of the GT1 battle between Brian Bennett and Eric Smith. They've had to back off there into the first Mulsanne chicane. Brian Barnes going to get the run here on the Corvette, but oh, he's not sure which way to go. That's one of the difficulties with multi-class racing at the exit of a corner, especially at that part of the track. You're not quite sure where the GT's going to go. In the HPD, you have to be planning out your moves 4 or 5 corners in advance. And back into the draft then for Justin Kirby. Is he going to go for the move here at the second Mulsanne chicane? He is. Barnes saw him coming and just decided to yield, but Kirby, oh, he's gotten massively crossed up there through the chicane, right on the racing line at the exit. Very, very close there. Brian McGreevy almost suffering damage.
Oh my goodness gracious, and that was your GT1 class leader, Christian Challoner, that made it by. Let's watch this on a replay, and then let's go on board with Challoner. Very, very close there between them.
Actually, that was Brian Bennett that was close to. They've got similar cars. And you'll see it here, and it's like all of a sudden, he's like, he goes in there, and it's almost, you just couldn't see him. He just unsighted, and all of a sudden, I got a car spinning out in front of me, jerking a little bit to the right, gets by. And I don't think we've had a chance to mention it, guys. Brian is, running the old school Black Adder scheme in honor of everybody's friend, his former teammate, of course, John King, who lost his battle of brain cancer right at the start of the season. And, always thinking about John. We've done some stuff at PRL for him as well. And, just want to tell John's family, who I think still watches some of these races, that we're thinking of him. So it's another little tribute out there for John King.
Hashtag racing for John, something that is very near and dear to our hearts here at GSRC. Very happy to see Brian out there in that scheme. But want to jump you over a bit of a strange pit strategy starting to develop here. Andrew Waring into the pits, maybe getting a spare car here, and that under tray damage like you talked about, Reese, coming back to bite him, and he thinks he's got to get a spare.
Yeah, perhaps. He's made his way out of the pits. It looks like no damage there on the car, visually at least from what we can see. And it was a very short stop there for Andrew Waring. Only 13.8 seconds stopped. Probably a little bit extra fuel in the car, and try his best to minimize his final stop later on. But, man, Andrew Waring's really cost himself in this race in the last half hour or so.
Well, think about Andrew's position here. He's got a car that is fast enough to win this race. And that 13 seconds sounds about the length of time he would have needed to completely top off this tank. Either way, he's likely to come away with the podium and a good finish here as long as he can keep the car clean today. So why not try something a little bit different, a little bit off schedule from the rest of the guys, and see how it plays out in the end? He might strike gold here. You never know. Might as well. Give it a shot. You're not going to, you fell too far behind to probably win this race on pace alone. So do something a little bit different.
Yeah, that's a very good point there, Adam, and I was kind of thinking the same thing, to be honest. He's only about 2.9 seconds back from Swaby, so he'll certainly be able to catch that up.
Yeah, I mean, you got, by the time he came in, they had already put on something like 45 seconds or something on Swaby. So, no offense to Lyndon, but Waring's going to be able to get around him in no time flat, I think, here. And by the way, I was wanting to comment on something here with Andrew Waring. I think out of the entire Majors series over the last probably 5 or 6 years, it really has been that long. I don't think I've seen a guy improve at the rate that I've seen Andrew Waring, going from being kind of more of a, back to midfielder in the pro category to now gunning for this championship here against Christian Challoner. Waring has just improved leaps and bounds over the years.
I can speak on that as well. I've known Andrew Waring for quite some time, even before his time in the Majors series. A different league, a different sim, a different time, and Waring was very quick. Certainly couldn't match him on pace when we were racing together, but yeah, I mean, his pace right now in the Majors series, absolutely fantastic. I'm sure that he'll be able to claw something back here.
And you got to think about the kind of notice he's putting on for Christian Challoner in the overall season championship. I mean, a few years ago it was Blake Reynolds, and then Christian came up, and then all of a sudden it was like he's challenging Blake for stuff. And then Blake, of course, now in the eNASCAR Pro Series, focusing on that. And Challoner has the crown. And now Waring is next up in line to try to go up for that. And I would not be surprised if Waring wins the championship this year or next. He is just that quick now.
He certainly is, and he is a delight to see drive. And one of my favorite things about him is the kind of heady heads-up plays that we're seeing here. We're going to jump back here. This is a little bit of a battle. Quinn, Morton, and behind them, that is Swaby and Waring. This is a whole kerfluffle that we're getting into here as Waring goes by Swaby, gets by him, trying to get by Liam Quinn right now.
Typical section of the circuit for inter-class action. Waring's going to have to back off here through the chicane and then go for the move down the straight. But crucially, he's gotten by Swaby now, which is certainly going to help him in his fight there. But Liam Quinn now also ahead of Justin Morton. So that battle continuing in the GT1 class as the Kinetic teammates come together through the Dunlop chicane, and Swaby, I think, having to back out of there, and I think neither of them will be too happy with that one. It'll certainly be a bit of a discussion there between the teammates.
Maybe a little bit of a discussion. That just looked a little bit more like a miscommunication of car language, and the kind of thing that happens, and I think it just kind of shocked Swaby that he was still there, but Swaby wisely just kind of, took the better route out, bailed out of it before something happened, and I was able to save everybody the trouble of having a car contact there and get him in the next corner.
Indeed, but what that slowing down there has done is that is Andrew Wood popping into the back of your screen there in that black HPD. He may now be in contention to maybe make a little bit of a challenge up to Lyndon Swaby if he's not careful. Granted, he does have to clear by Justin Morton and Liam Quinn, but he will get the benefit of the draft here to get by them, something that I don't really think Swaby's going to be able to take full advantage of.
No, certainly Swaby's all on his own there, and he's got a second or two up to Kevin Hill as then making his way past to the GT1s is Andrew Wood, and still a little bit far back from Swaby to be getting the full benefit of the draft. I think at Le Mans it starts coming into play from about 1.4 seconds back, so he's right on the verge there is Andrew Wood. Give it an extra couple of corners and he might just be in it.
Oh, and behind them, Quinn had a very bad exit out of that second chicane. That's allowed for Morton to pull alongside from him. It's going to be a straight drag race that Morton is going to win going down into the Mulsanne hairpin. So move Justin Morton into that final podium position in GT1.
And Steve Driscoll is going to get a big chance here as well. Remember, we saw Driscoll go for that spin in the Arnage complex some laps back. So now he has a chance at getting some positions back here with now, have a look at the run that Justin Morton's gotten there on Liam Quinn. Really gapped him coming out of Mulsanne. So it's Corvette versus Aston Martin, Quinn versus Driscoll, Evolve versus Kinetic.
Yeah, some of our best teams out here on display. Driscoll not really wanting to go for the full pass there. If he can avoid it, they're going to stay line astern as they make their way down into Arnage. Very wide line there for Morton, trying to take as much track as he can, and that's going to help him on corner exit. But throw a blanket over these guys, only a second separating all of them.
You're just kind of running through the field right now. Of course, that still looks like one of the best battles on the track. Is, you know, this is kind of that mid-race time where we talked about a few minutes ago. Things kind of also starting to spread out a little bit, but that's also where the mental fatigue kind of really comes into play too. These guys, though, man, this is Driscoll's best chance here. You're right. After his spin earlier, to get back a few positions, make up some lost ground. You know, that kind of gave up, I think, as far as, you know, obviously Challoner's just setting the world on fire right now at the top of that class, but he had a chance at second today, and he knows that.
He's going to be kicking himself for sure, but rest assured he's going to be doing everything that he can do to get back at it. And remember, Kevin Hill only about 2 seconds up the road from these guys. So if Driscoll's able to dispatch Quinn and Morton here, getting that second place position is not going to be out of the cards.
Yeah, certainly not. Chris Yatito there in the HPD behind these three GT1s who remain pretty close. Kevin Hill's got a nice gap to Justin Morton up ahead, and those guys may certainly come back together shortly. Justin Morton, 346.9 his previous lap. It was a 347.4 for Kevin Hill, so Morton is on a bit of a charge right now in that Corvette, as Quinn and Driscoll still very close together. Is Yatito going up the inside of them, coming down the first part of the Mulsanne straight. It's a bit of a double draft there for Driscoll in the Aston Martin, and he's going to draw alongside Quinn as they come up to the first Mulsanne chicane, and we see Quinn lifting off there. He knows that the move was on, and he can just slot in behind Driscoll and get a little bit more of that slipstream, a little bit more of a fuel save going on.
Yeah, big props to Yatito here, because I mean, he waited there all through that first set of corners as well, wait till it got to the Mulsanne, and then started making the moves around these guys. Very much showing the patience that you need being a faster class, and not really in an active battle either. So he's got a while, but he still does have Brian Barnes that's starting to gain a few seconds on him while he was waiting there.
Yeah, Barnes certainly not out of the equation, but Driscoll definitely able to drop a little bit of time back to Liam Quinn as he starts to pull ahead here. It's focusing in on Justin Morton. Morton not getting a good run out of that second Mulsanne chicane. I don't know if that's going to be enough for Driscoll to make a full move here going down into the hairpin. He's certainly going to make Morton think about it, doing a little bit of that restrictor play poke out to the inside like we alluded to earlier. Morton getting a little bit defensive, trying to pinch him down. Here comes Driscoll, though. He is going to try to at least commit to the move. That's very brave, and indeed he's going to back out of it, just seeing if he can psych out Justin Morton.
Morton went slightly deep into Mulsanne that time, but he still manages to get some good traction on the exit and keep himself ahead of Driscoll. But the draft is going to come in once again for the Aston Martin. Love this view looking from the rear bumper of the Corvette. You see that Aston Martin, very scary, just leading up there to Indianapolis, but he's not going to have space there. This has brought Liam Quinn right back into it as well. It's a proper three-way fight.
It is, and Quinn really having to dab the brakes there going into that right-hander before Indianapolis to make sure he didn't run into the back of Steve Driscoll. Now everybody breaks into Indianapolis. Brian Barnes being very heads up, staying behind this battle, knowing this is a fight out on track, not wanting to push the issue too much. Morton able to get a better run out of Arnage here, it looks like. He's going to have some breathing room on the, to the tune of about 0.6 of a second up the road to Steve Driscoll.
Oh, looks like Driscoll's had to go wide in the first part of the Porsche curves to allow Brian Barnes through. It just wasn't much of a run there for the HPD, and that has put a bit of a split there to Justin Morton once again. Barnes makes his way around the outside of that Corvette, no problem around the fast right-hander. These guys then spaced out a little bit again, a little more equidistant, but with a bit more distance between them now. But this battle shows no signs of abating, or does it? Because into the pits comes Steve Driscoll.
All right, that is the first of your GT1 field to come in for this second stop. Just under an hour and 8 minutes to go here at the 2.4 hours of Le Mans. So Driscoll coming in here on lap 20. That's only an 8-lap stint for him. So I've got to imagine, Adam, that he's got one more pit stop left in him.
Yeah, he's going to have to do a splash and go toward the tail end of this thing, but you know, he might be thinking that some of the other guys might too. Might be a strategy call here, but he's also ran a lot today, especially after the recovery from that spin in just clean air. I mean, so he was burning fuel more than a lot of the other guys. Still though, coming in early like this, this has to be a strategy call. Brian Bennett came in a few minutes ago too and took tires also, and I don't see the car yet going up on Driscoll, but that'll be something to watch for.
We keep our eyes focused here on the Evolve Sim Sports driver waiting in the box. A 30-second stop for him. So that is relatively on par with some of the other ones that we've seen, maybe a few seconds shorter, about 3 seconds shorter than last time. So little bit of an under fuel there probably. He probably had some fuel left in the tank that he didn't need to put back into. Well, we're going to jump up here. This is the Porsche battle. We haven't given a lot of love to this GT3 field, but this is Jason Wallet and Rob Powers going at it very, very closely. And so that's certainly turning into a fun little something here. And that's Jason Brophy also behind them trying to make some moves as well.
This is a cool battle here. Two kinetic cars versus Jason Wallet here. And there's quite a bit of slipstream going on here as, oh, that's very deep for the number 47 of Rob Powers. That's contact with Jason Wallet, and he locks up, goes right across the circuit, and then the other kinetic car in there as well. Jason Brophy into the wall just about at Mulsanne, and he's going to have a lot of trouble getting that going.
Indeed he is. Let's check out the replay of this. There you can see that move to the inside like we talked about. A little bit of a defensive move there from the 114 of Wallet. He goes down and just absolutely a little bit of overcook. Oh, a little bit of net code there. It looks like between the two drivers, and then Powers with nowhere to go.
It's a big shame there for the two kinetic boys, and Jason Brophy now carrying some damage on his front left, hoping that he still has his spare car in the back pocket. I'm sure that he would, but oh no, he's just gone off again at Indianapolis. He's going to be bringing that into the pits for sure. Actually, oh, careful as Enrique now into the pits in the HPDs.
All right, so this is one of your early leaders currently running in second, courtesy of that early pit stop from Waring. As Enrique comes into the box. Gentlemen, I'm not seeing Andrew Waring on my timing screens.
Neither am I. Looks like, oh no, the server disconnected due to incoming packet loss. Yeah. That is technical issues for Andrew Waring, and that is the race completely thrown there for him. Oh my goodness, technical issues, you know, they always bite, they're always painful in sim racing. You know, in real life, you have, you know, a bearing fail or the engine pops or something like that. You get a plastic bag in the air intake. For the sim racers, it's the Ethernet cable that goes.
It's one of the hardest things to see happen, and it has struck one of our championship competitors here. But we focus in on the current leader in the HPD category. This is Joshua Chin. He had a good battle early on with Waring and Enrique, but now it is all Chin all the time. He has a 53-second gap back to Lyndon Swaby, and he has been absolutely in control of this field.
There hasn't been any touch in Joshua Chin when he wants to be out in front. You know, he's spent a lot of time just kind of riding back and biding his time here for today. After lap one, I think was a little bit chaotic for him. But now, all he's got to do is just keep a clean race car at this point. He'll bring this thing home, but it's an hour at Le Mans. And don't forget, you're seeing the lights kick on these cars now. we're going to be finishing this thing in practical darkness. So, once the sun goes down here at Le Mans, pretty much anything can happen. So, still got an hour left, still plenty of drama to possibly be had. But if Joshua Chin can avoid the drama, he just needs to stay clean, man.
Indeed, and if anybody can do it, it is Joshua Chin. As we've mentioned a couple of times, one of the better drivers on the sim. A little bit more known for his open wheel expertise, but proving here today that in a prototype he can do just fine and dandy.
Yeah, it's effectively an open wheel with some extra bodywork. Is the HPD mid-engine Honda Performance Development V8 in the back of it. This car is actually, when I've been doing my racing, I think the HPD is the car that I have the most miles in any car on iRacing. I've driven it in a few leagues in the Oz NZ scene, and it's certainly been a trusty old horse and for many other drivers out there.
She's a good old girl, and it is a little bit sad to see her use diminished a little bit on the sim, obviously replaced in essence by the Dallara LMP2 chassis. So very happy for the majors to let these drivers get back into the old open cockpit HPDs and let them tear around here.
And not to get too off topic a whole lot here, but I don't know if you guys have tried those LMP2s since they released them last year. But man, I love driving those things. Those are some good cars.
They certainly are. Got a little bit of a battle starting to shape up here. This is Hill and Steele running. It's Driscoll and Steele. That is Steve Driscoll coming back from that pit stop that we talked about, making his way up forward, able to get by his teammate in Kevin Hill. So that is going to be him up into the 5th place position. He now has Travis Warling, a good section of the road up ahead of him, but another place gain for Steve Driscoll.
Yeah, but a lot of those guys still also have to make stops too, so he's still got some time. I think he'll be all right. Still trying to figure out that strategy on the short stop that he had just a little while ago. But yeah, I think it's a good one because he came in at the first part of the GT1 pit cycle just a little while ago as well. So.
Yeah, depending on when it is, the drivers in the GT1 category currently working on lap 22, it looks like. And indeed, here comes Christian Challoner into the pits, your leader in that GT1 category. He's making his way down pit lane right now. So this could be the kickoff for a lot of these other drivers. And indeed, I'm looking, and that's Justin Morton coming down as well. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a short stint here. Maybe they're going to try to go to the end. A lot of strategy still in play for these GT1s.
Well, if Christian wants to try to go to the end from here, I mean, he has enough time gap between everybody else in that field that he might just be able to pull that off and save enough fuel to make that happen. The other guys, probably not. I think they're all going to be playing catch up here.
I think that's certainly right. Challoner has looked the most in command out of any of these drivers out here today. Just absolutely dominant. He does relinquish the lead here for the shortest moment. And that will go to Liam Quinn, who did not come into the pits. Challoner and Morton, the only two who have.
Yeah, Morton currently at a standstill in the pit lane as well. He's going to try and go for the same strategy call that Challoner has, and Morton's been holding on very nicely to one of those top positions in the GT1 class. He is out of the pits and once again not taking tires, not worth it at this point.
Another driver who is in right now is Justin Kirby in the number 43 HPD. He is taking tires, so a little bit of a strategy call there for the Black Magic Motorsports driver.
Yeah, a little bit fresher rubber might be able to offset the time loss by taking tires, and that stop there for Justin Kirby, 46.1 seconds, but Driscoll and Hill still very much together here in GT1. Driscoll, of course, up ahead, but Hill staying within the slipstream of his teammate, trying his best to save a little bit of fuel himself. He still has yet to come in. Or does he actually? No, he's taken his second pit stop a while ago. Oh, yeah, but we got to remember that he came in a little bit earlier, so that might be a splash and dash for him towards the end.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the strategy that we may be looking at playing out, but we continue to watch here. This is the 51 of Steve Driscoll as it's going in, but we are going to very quickly take a break here on the Global Sim Racing channel as we tick down with just an hour to go here at the 2.4 hours of Le Mans. So we're going to step away for a brief moment, but don't come back. We will cover this last hour and all of this exciting strategy from to the end. Welcome back to the 2.4 hours of Le Mans presented by the Major Series Americas region. We continue to race here around the Circuit du Sarthe with Joshua Chin out front in the HPD and top category with a commanding lead. In the GT1 category, it is Christian Challoner also in the lead as well, doing an absolutely stellar job to control that field pretty much start to finish at this point. And then back in that GT3 Porsche category, it is James Walker with a 47-second advantage. So all leaders pretty much set in their ways here, but we have seen that this track can take it out of you if you are not careful, Adam.
You really can, and you know, it's if you get complacent in the middle part of this race, you will find that Le Mans will chew you up and spit you out, and we've seen that with a few guys here today. But overall, I mean, we've really only seen just a very small handful of car-on-car contacts. We've seen a few guys spin on their own. We've seen a lot of slowdowns here for today, and well, I'm just glad that people got their incident as far as 1X's under control, because that was looking a little worrisome at the start of this thing too.
It certainly was. And Reese, now we get to talk about the one thing that we've been talking about, that sun starting to shine its way down onto the straightaway before Indianapolis, probably causing a few issues for the drivers before it fully sets, and we've got to go racing with the lights.
Yes, indeed. When you're heading towards the west on this magnificent long Circuit de la Sarthe, that setting sun can really distract you as you're going through a couple of the corners. You've got to be very careful here in the low light conditions. Make sure that your setup is all good, that you've got your driving technique down pat through these many corners around this track. We're riding on board with Travis Walling at the moment in the GT1 class.
Hey, Reese, I hate to cut you off, but Brian Barnes, I think he was in 5th or 6th at the time in HPDs. I think he ran out of fuel coming out of the Porsche curves.
Oh, no.
Jumping back to check out the replay here. This is him coming through Porsche. Reese, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm seeing absolutely no rev lights on the dash, and that car is right out of fuel. It's actually an all right place to run out of fuel because you've just got that long run down to the pits, and Barnes has just been able to coast it into pit lane there. That's a big shame there for the number 4. He was running pretty well there in, challenging for the top 5 positions, but he's brought it into the pit lane now, and he can get that thing filled back up.
Indeed, jumping back here to that GT1 leader that we've been talking about. This is Christian Challoner. Now, remember, he did come in a little bit earlier, but we've got Warling now coming into the pits. Now, this is P2 in that GT1 category.
Yeah, he's going in for his second stop of the night. He was right there with Challoner as we saw before, but he had yet to take his second stop. So Mr. Warling now in the lane, nice and still, getting some more fuel in that car. And again, no tires from what I can see. As we've been mentioning, tires are certainly not the way to go if you're competing up the top in these classes. You want to minimize that time spent in the pits, but Warling is now away, and that is a 35.3 second stop time, and that's pretty consistent with what we've been seeing so far. Still the shortest pit stop in the GT1 class is Liam Quinn, who's resumed second place there in his fight with Kevin Hill, but we would be expecting Liam Quinn to go for another stop shortly. Joshua Chin now, our HPD leader, into the pits for his second stop of the night.
Yeah, very different than his first stop earlier on, where it seemed like he was just pushing Andrew Warring in. This time, clean in, and going to have probably a clean out here as well.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to be pretty simple for Chin to be able to come in and out on, and I think at this point, he may need a splash and dash, but the way Joshua Chin thinks he may be able to make this to the end, really stretching things out here. Behind him, waiting for a couple other drivers to circle their way by. I have to imagine they'll be coming in here soon. That's Wood, Kuhn, the only other 2 drivers that haven't made their second stop yet.
I reckon that Joshua Chin might just be able to go to the end, and he looks like he can afford to take tires as well. That gap out the front there for him with Waring's disconnection, certainly allowing him the opportunity to get some fresh rubber on that car.
Yeah, for sure. And there he is, out and on his way. Joshua Chin resuming the lead. It looks like I'm not seeing. There is Jason Enrique right there. That is technically a battle for position, but Enrique has pitted, so that is a full battle right now.
Well, Chin's going to have the advantage of fresher rubber here. He can afford to take a little bit more through these corners, and he's going to bide his time here behind Jason Enrique, and a little bit of extra fuel saving to try and get to the end. I reckon that the HPDs would be able to make it with under 50 minutes to go now with a stop at this point. But for Joshua Chin now, he'll get those tires up to temperature. He'll start pushing hard through the corners here and probably waste as little time as he can trying to get by Jason Enrique. Maybe sit in the draft and save a couple extra milliliters of fuel just to make sure that he's safe to the end.
Yeah, and while of course he's doing that, riding behind Enrique, he is Enrique's pushing it. I mean, he ain't saving fuel at all at this point. So, it's also making your competitor burn more fuel. But I would have to think, guys, that Jason came in early enough that he would almost definitely have to make another stop, at least a splash and go, maybe. I could be totally wrong, but it might not just be a battle that Chin has to wage at this point.
No, I think you're right there, Adam. Enrique came in on 23, so he will probably have to do a splash and dash. But let's jump us back here. This is the battle for second in GT1. This is Kevin Hill ahead of Liam Quinn and Steve Driscoll. Driscoll recovering from that early error that we saw him have, getting a little bit out of line there as Liam Quinn, I think, held him up ever so slightly through the Porsche curves.
Yeah, so allowing Kevin Hill to get ahead.
Yeah, as I say, these guys have been going at it here for a while too. So I really think they've just been kind of setting the stage. Especially Driscoll's comeback tour. Let's call it that after his events here at the first part of this race. And he's got a great chance here to possibly get back up to second. But I really think these guys have just been biding their time here for this last stint and then trying to make the magic happen. By the way, did you see that camera work coming out of the Ford chicanes there? That's Dougie Beard at work. That was absolutely fantastic.
There's none better in the business than our Dougie Beard, always giving us the best cameras. And we also want to give a shout out to our incredible director who's cycling through him, Sean Ambrose. We could not make this without him. But we continue to watch this battle. A little bit of interesting braking there, a little bit of stop and go braking up ahead from Liam Quinn, maybe just trying to throw Driscoll off his line, but not looking like it's working all that well. Driscoll really starting to gain on. Good run out of Tech Rouge. This could be the opportunity he's been looking for.
In the draft for the Aston Martin, pulls out. Looks like he might just have a run here. There we go. He commits to the maneuver. Liam Quinn might just lift off here into the first of the Mulsanne chicanes because Driscoll's alongside. And there we go. There is the slight lift from Liam Quinn. Driscoll on through.
Smart move from Quinn, knows that there's still 45 minutes or so left to go in this race. Doesn't want to do anything too aggressive. Save that for the last lap around here, but this battle is going to heat up still. Driscoll has less than a second up the road to Kevin Hill, so his job is not done. And Liam Quinn certainly looking like he's not ready to go back into the sunset as well.
Well, Quinn's only 2.5 laps now into his stint. He only recently pitted, so looks like Driscoll is another 3 laps into his stint. So Liam Quinn still has a bit more fuel to play with here.
Certainly does, and I can report for anybody interested in that battle for P1 in HPD that Joshua Chin made the pass going down into Indianapolis. He is back in the lead of that top category. But look at this, a little bit of lap traffic getting in the way here. That's Austin Espedy back in the Porsche Cup car. That certainly ballooned out the gap ever so slightly between Hill and Driscoll. He was getting a little bit closer, and now Quinn still up behind, looking pretty good here, but I don't know how aggressive he wants to be. Driscoll almost looked like he was going for a defensive move there down into Indianapolis, a little bit worried about a counterattack from that Corvette behind him.
A little bit tighter on entry into Indianapolis, as well as Quinn just dips a wheel off into the gravel. He is pushing incredibly hard in that Corvette, but he can't afford to keep doing that. It's very easy if you dip a wheel off into the grass or the gravel to go for a spin. These cars do have traction control, but you often don't want to activate it because, you know, the way it works is cuts traction to the wheels, and once you're sideways, if the traction control is active, then you're basically gone. There's very little chance that you'll actually recover.
Yeah, that is true in these cars for sure. Definitely something you don't want to be getting into if you can avoid it. But there you see them snaking their way through the Corvette curves now, coming back on and getting ready to take the Ford chicane. Driscoll continuing to chase downhill. Quinn looks like he lost a little bit of time there coming through the Porsche curves.
That he did, and the gap starting to extend now to Steve Driscoll, as that's a slightly suboptimal section of the circuit there from Liam Quinn. He's lost even more time coming down the front straightaway here at Le Mans. So Driscoll and Hill now line astern once again. The two teammates just keeping themselves in contention there for those final two spots on the podium in GT1. It's actually been quite a good race there for Evolve Sim Sport. They've kept themselves in the fight there. Very good to see.
Yeah, very good to see indeed that they're coming back up like this. Though we have a good battle, but we're going to jump to the GT3 boys here. This is James Walker, your leader. Haven't given him a whole lot of screen time here today because he has just been absolutely dominant. A 54-second lead ahead of Mark Stevenson. Great racing for the number 97 Forge Racing Pro driver.
Indeed, he's got Jason Brophy up behind him there. Brophy, the last running car out on track there with Joshua Collins and Andrew Waring, our only two retirements out of this race so far. You got to hand it to James Walker. He has absolutely had this dominant run here in Porsche Cup, and he's the only car out of that class, aside from Austin Espity, to not take tyres so far in this race, and that can really pay dividends in Porsche Cup. The tyres very hard on the Porsche Cup cars. You can make them go for quite some time. Yeah, they're not very grippy there at the start of the stint, but if you take care of those tyres, then it'll certainly pay off later on in the race.
Well, and thinking ahead to the championship, what's important here for Walker is, remember, coming in, he was only a point behind Christian Challoner. So the way the points work is that you awarded the same amount of points if you win in HPD, if you win in GT1, or if you win in GT3. So what that is going to allow Walker to do is he will maintain that 1 point gap to Christian Challoner. Now, the wrench in the works here, Andrew Waring, who was having a pretty good race in the HPD category, had those technical issues that forced him out. He was also only a point behind Challoner, so he's going to drop back, but Joshua Chin was 9 points back in third. He's going to start eking his way up there, and he's going to start thinking about a championship run if he's not careful.
Yes, indeed. And Andrew Waring's disconnection a little bit earlier is going to hurt him a bit in that sense. He's still very much in the fight, though. Unfortunate there for Waring. He can certainly come back in later rounds in the season. But yeah, as you say, the championship fight's still very close up at the front between James Walker and Christian Challoner. Seeing our good friend Syandra saying, somebody BOP Challoner, because, I would agree with that. He has had absolutely no trouble in GT1, but the battle for second behind him still going on very much between Steve Driscoll and Kevin Hill. Looks like Driscoll's actually made his way past Hill there.
Yeah, he has. I believe he was able to make that move down into Indianapolis and Arnage. So Driscoll's redemption story has come back to her, as Adam said earlier. Looking pretty good here. He's going to be hoping for some good box office returns. The only thing that's going to be interesting about this is the fuel strategies on these cars. Now, Driscoll came in on lap 21. Hill came in on lap 22, and Quinn came in on lap 24. Now, based off of my numbers, and everyone please be as scared as I am that I'm doing math live on air, I think that means that Quinn can make it to the end. Driscoll may have to do a splash and dash here, especially as hard as he's been charging.
Well, I'll say this. I practically have a math minor, and you're braver than I am on that one. Just throwing that out there. But you bring up an interesting point, too, about the championship and where things are going with Chin just a minute ago and Challoner. And, Chin, you got to remember, he's really good at the open wheel style cars, but the next round for the America side is going to be Crandon in the Lucas the Lucas off-road trucks in Pro 4 and Pro 2. I really think that's going to be a wild card in this series that could very well at the end of the day possibly determine who wins the championship, because at the rest of the schedule I would think that Chin and Challoner, and at the end of the day, Andrew Waring as well, don't count him totally out of this thing, they're going to be pretty even in everything, just looking at their strengths and weaknesses and everything. I think it's going to be a fun championship here. But, of course, these guys go all the way to December. So, we got a while here before we see how things shape out, and it's exciting.
We do indeed. And, a couple of those events that are coming up, we do have some open wheelers. We're going to be running Formula One at one point. We're going to be running the Legacy Dallara machines, not the DW12s, but the IR02s, those old machines that were running in the IRL. So definitely some areas that could favor Chin, as well as some more GT races coming down the pipe. Spa coming up, that's going to be a GT race that could favor Challenger. It's all going to be up for debate here. None of this is settled. This is a very, very long season. And just as you've seen out of Andrew Waring today, anything can happen and completely derail everything.
Yeah, correctamundo on that one. Looks like a little bit of traffic here, excuse me, for Steve Driscoll and Kevin Hill, but no trouble there from the Dog Bear Porsche of Jeff Schmeier, who's running very well in third in the Porsche Cup class. It's quite the gap ahead to Mark Stevenson, who's just making his way through the Porsche curves, but still holding on very nicely in the Dog Bear car is Jeff Schmeier. And it looks like, unfortunately for Liam Quinn, he's going to get held up by Schmeier out of Indianapolis. He makes the moves up the inside of Arnage, but still, that's a little bit of time lost to the two Evolve Aston Martins. Again, though, we have to remember that Liam Quinn is the latest stopper in that GT1 class, so he might be able to get them towards the end.
He may indeed. And just a note out of all of that, the one who has stopped the latest in that GT1 category is Travis Warling, who's currently back in 6th place. He was able to stretch that stint to lap 25. Now, I think that will play out for sure well, and he will definitely be able to make it to the end. A lot of debate on the other ones.
Yeah, but I mean, if nobody else can, if Warling's the only one that can, it's not going to be enough, I think, to snatch the win away or anything like that. I mean, Challenger, I think he's just too far ahead. But, I mean, Warling very well could get a handful of positions. Joshua Chin halfway around. I think that was out of the stall on hairpin. He's going to lose a little bit of time.
That was at Arnage there. And, so it looks like he just got on the entry curb coming into that corner, and once the left-hand side of the car gets on that curb and you have a very slight lock-up over that rough sawtooth curbing, whoops-a-daisy, round he goes.
Indeed, good job of Chin to catch it there. The gap back to Jason Enrique is down to about 3.4 seconds, 3.5 now as Chin continues to stretch that out, but it definitely cost him some time and probably cost him a new pair of underwear as well. A very scary moment for Joshua Chin, but he's going to continue to motor on here. We do think he will be able to make it to the end.
And I'm actually a little concerned now because ever since that half spin, he is driving a lot more aggressive here by himself than I've seen him run really all day. He's almost caught the grass once or twice now. He is jumping over curbs like he's not usually to. He's pushing it. And I might be making something out of nothing here, but is he pushing it for a reason at this point? Does he feel like he has to put more ground on Jason Henrique because maybe a fuel issue? I just don't know, but he's not driving the same as he was just a couple of minutes ago.
You're very right there, Adam. I'm watching him as well. It's very aggressive lines there from Chin. And the truth of the matter is that I don't think he has to drive that hard to get past Enrique. Chin stopped the whole 4 laps after him, so if fuel is of an issue, they're both going to have to come in. So I'm not really sure what the game is there for the number 93.
It could be a little bit of the red mist that we were talking about earlier, too. I mean, that's a possibility to think about also, and he's just angry at himself for making a slight mistake. But don't let that slight mistake ruin your race here at this point either. Get back to driving smooth. It'll be all right. I mean, you're already pulling back time once again on Henrique. In fact, he's already gained again, I think, about a second on him again here since that half spin.
Yeah, indeed. So he's certainly got it. Maybe just wants to build himself a little bit of a gap over the course of a lap or two, and then he'll calm himself back down. He's just got to be very careful when he does it. Checking back here, though, this is Christian Challoner again giving some love to our leaders because he has been so dominant here today. It's Barnes going on by him. He has been so dominant today. We haven't really given him as much screen time as he deserves, but that #1 Kinetic America's Pro 2 machine just absolutely electric at Le Mans.
Yeah, Challoner's putting on a fantastic performance here today, showing why he is the reigning champion of Majors Americas and keeping it nice and smooth through the chicanes as well, barely using any curb compared to what we've seen other drivers do. And I think for Challoner, that is the key, you know, just keeping the car nice and stable through the corners, not using up too much of the tires, not unsettling the car too much, allowing himself to make up the time where it really matters.
Exactly, and that is the sign of a true champion. Oh, that's a beautiful shot right there coming under the Dunlop Bridge. I have to say that's actually the background on my computer is that shot exactly. So I'm a little bit biased, but it's one of the most beautiful sights you will ever see in motorsports.
Le Mans really is beautiful when the sun is rising or setting. You know, I particularly like it when you know, it's in the early morning hours of a 24-hour race and you've got the sun coming up through the that opening set of curves underneath the Dunlop Bridge. Certainly makes for some fantastic shots. But here in the coming towards dusk conditions, we're still a little bit away from actual sunset. Still plenty of light out there on the racetrack, but you'll see towards the end the headlights will properly come on these cars. And drivers will have a little beam of light to light the way up towards the track in front of them, on board with Challoner down the Mulsanne straight. It's interesting to note there that he's taking the middle of the road. Oh, seeing that Yatito, I think, having an issue.
Actually, he's got it. The only issue he's got is that Andrew Wood is in front of him and he's faster than him, Reese, and that's what we're looking at right here. The Forge Racing 2 driver there, Chris Yatito, chasing down the Kinetic driver. This has been one of the battles that we have been following between those two teams across this entire championship. You can see Yatito really starting to close him down. He's got that gap under 0.7 of a second as they work their way through the curves here. This tricky section of track. Let's see if Yatito is able to keep that gap nice and slow, even though he's going to be fighting some of that aero wash.
He certainly is. You know, as I mentioned earlier, this HPD produces most of its downforce through the floor. These prototypes actually have 2 diffusers, one for the front of the car, one for the rear of the car. So they produce an awful lot of ground effect downforce, similar to the Lotus 79 that we saw back in round 3 of this series. But there's still a bit of aero wash to contend with, and also a little bit of traffic there as well. That is Jason Wallet, who we've seen have a couple of issues throughout this race, particularly that incident with the 2 Kinetic drivers at Mulsanne earlier. But seems that Yatito's been able to make his way past no problem and still keep a reasonable gap to Andrew Wood.
Yeah, it was seesawing a little bit there, but as they come through that first set of corners, the gap is now stabilized at about 1.1 seconds, jumping around a little bit there still, but he is certainly chasing him down. He'll want to get that gap a little bit smaller if he can to try to maximize the draft, but he'll still pick up a little bit of it, and I imagine he'll gain a couple of tenths here as they work their way past Tete Rouge and onto this long Mulsanne straight.
It always amazes me how much curb you can take out of Tete Rouge. Of course, the way the slowdown system is implemented here at Le Mans in iRacing, you do have to get back onto the track before the curb ends, but you see it in real life, you see it in the sim. You want to try and maximize your speed through the mid-corner and just run all the way out over the curb to get as much speed as possible onto the straight. Cars eat curbs at Le Mans for breakfast, lunch and tea here, and looks like Yatito's getting a good run there, as it looks like our GT3 leader, James Walker, into the pits.
Indeed, there you can see the Forge Racing driver, a little bit of a splash and jash like you predicted earlier on, following Mark Stevenson here. Now, this is the second driver in that GT category. Walker already out and on the way for that splash and dash, and indeed, here comes Stevenson coming in as well.
Well, there were no tyres for James Walker. He's got enough of a gap out the front that he can afford to not take that rubber, deal with the old tyres, and just keep himself nice and smooth. But I'm wondering what Mark Stevenson's going to do here, because he's got Jeff Schmeier up behind him in third as well. Still a bit to play for second place. Schmeier making his way through the Porsche curves, and I would not be surprised if he elects to go for a stop as well. Looks like Mark Stevenson there just taking fuel only as expected.
And that was Steve Driscoll that you saw coming in ahead of him. So that driver coming in to get a little bit of a splash and dash here, it looks like that's a little bit longer than the splash and dash I would have anticipated.
Yeah, well, Driscoll, we got to remember, he is a little bit off strategy versus the likes of Liam Quinn, and it looks like that's a good fuel stop there for Steve Driscoll. He is up and away, as is Mr. Stevenson.
By the way, the battle that you guys were watching just a few minutes ago, Gidio is now past Andrew Wood. Got past him just before Indianapolis a little bit ago, and already seeming like he's putting on a pretty good gap on him here.
Yeah, watching that car, it certainly looked like Tito had the speed to be able to do it, and now Wood is certainly going to lose a little bit of time through that aero wash like you talked about, Reese. The downforce being generated on the underside of the car and that little bit of unsettled air in front probably going to cost him a little bit of time. Indeed, the gap hovering about a second. Wood able to keep up relatively close with that, so maybe all hope is not lost there for the Kinetic driver.
Yeah, not all hope lost indeed, I'm sure, as we see Brian Bennett bringing his legacy Blackadder Motorsport GT1 into the pits himself from 18th position overall. And Bennett continuing to keep himself in the fight for those minor positions in the GT1 class, but you see the gap there that Tito is starting to pull there over Andrew Wood. Once he's past him, it looks like that was all she wrote, and Tito very strong in fourth place in our top class.
Yeah, he'll be very happy with that, as will Forge Racing. As we said, they have been a constant here in the American region of the Major Series. Seen them have some very, very strong runs, harkening back to our modified run at New Hampshire. Good to see them climbing their way back up here as well.
Yeah, so a nice sedate run there for Chris Tito, and further to the point I was trying to make earlier when we were on board with Challoner, you will notice that drivers will stick to the very left or the very right down the Mulsanne straight, and Challoner was doing something a little bit odd there, going down the middle of the road. Since it's a French national highway, it is a public road, and that means that there is a proper crown in the actual tarmac. It's raised in the middle, so if you want to keep it stable, you want to get some good straight line speed, you often don't want to run there on the very middle of the road, because that can often result in a little bit more bumpiness, a little bit more scraping of the bottom of the car down those straights. But didn't seem to be a problem for Challoner. When you're going between the two Mulsanne chicanes, there's often a very specific point where you want to make that transition over from the left to the right-hand side of the racetrack, just to avoid losing a couple of kilometers an hour in straight line speed. Of course, we use metric down here in Aussie land.
Well, we won't hold that too much against you, Reese, but it's good driving tips for anybody who's trying to get a little bit faster here at Le Mans or any track that does have that crown. There are certain areas like that. But we've got some leaders popping on into the pits. This is Kevin Hill and Liam Quinn out of that GT1 category. We thought they may have to do a bit of a splash and dash, and indeed they will.
It's going to be a shorter splash and dash, I think, here for Liam Quinn. Remember, he pitted a couple of laps later than Hill and Driscoll, so he'll be spending a little bit less time here in the pit lane, and he might just get the jump on Hill, if not be equal on him coming out of pit lane.
They better make it quick, because Driscoll is already into the Ford chicanes here and almost onto the front straightaway. So he very well, I think, might get the jump on them too, if maybe they might get out just in front of him here.
Actually, it looks like Driscoll's got the run there.
Indeed, he does, Reese. There it is. Steve Driscoll back up into 4th position. Now, ahead of him, Travis Warling and Justin Morton have not pitted. Neither has your leader, Christian Challoner. Now, Challoner and Morton pitted on lap 23. Remember, Warling was one of the ones we were talking about that took that super late pit stop all the way on lap 25. So he may just have enough to eke this out. That is going to be the wild card here.
But keep an eye out on that towards the end of this race. But there's still plenty of battles here to decide the 2.4 hours of Le Mans. And gotta say that I've really enjoyed this race so far. As we take a look at Eric Smith here, he is really chasing down now Liam Quinn, who's just come out of the pits. And Mr. Smith here, he's already taken his 2nd stop. He's currently 10 laps into his stint, so I would expect him to come in the next lap or so.
As would I. In there, you see him just trying to eke out what he can. We've seen these cars be able to make 12 laps if they really, really hustle for it. Remember, Eric was running a lot higher earlier in the race, but caught a little bit of incident, so that caught him out, unfortunately. Also, just to note, we have had a couple of pitters up in that HPD category. I saw Lyndon Swaby popping on into the pits, as well as it was just Lyndon Swaby.
A single pitter there, and Swaby rejoining there in 5th place, and he might just get himself in that battle with Chris Yatito and Andrew Wood. Yatito is 9 laps into his stint, Wood 7 laps into his stint, and the HPD can make it 12 laps or so, maybe 13 if you fuel save it, 14 as we saw with Thomas Hinz in International. So I think Swaby is going to be in contention here for the final spot on the podium.
I think you're right with that assessment, as it often comes down to in some of these endurance races. We love talking about this fuel strategy, and that's really out here and what is going to be fascinating to see have happen as this goes along. Continue to watch here as Swaby makes his way around that Mulsanne chicane before the kink to the right and the run down to the hairpin. Light continuing to fade here at Le Mans. The headlights on these cars continuing to become more and more important.
Yeah, and one thing to remember too, this is not like Daytona, where some people might be more familiar with as far as night racing and road course racing and everything. Le Mans, you don't have a lot of other ambient light sources. So once the sun goes down fully here, it's going to be a little bit darker the last 2 laps or so, maybe 3 laps or so of this race. And all the light you might have might be from the front of your car, though I still think we'll have enough light on the horizon that's not totally pitch black. But just imagine driving around this thing in the middle of the night in a 24-hour race.
It's a great experience for sure.
Indeed, really the only source of ambient lighting you get is when you come on to the start-finish straight and get some of the pit lights there. We've got a pitter up front, though. That's Jason Enrique coming in, and there he is at a stop in his stall, getting that last little bit of fuel. I think he's going to be able to make it out before Chris Yatito does, but I do believe as well Eric Smith in the GT1s is coming in.
Yeah, that was at the end of his stint. He was really hassling Liam Quinn on that lap, but of course on a very light fuel load coming into the pits there was Mr. Smith, but he's made his way into the pits. Just coming out there is Jason Enrique and Justin Morton as well. He's going to filter out there in 6th place in GT1, and expecting that he won't have to come back into the end as we're coming up onto 20 minutes to go. Question is, will Morton be able to make up that time on Quinn, Driscoll, and Hill up ahead? It's going to be a very tough job.
It certainly is. He's got about 7.9 seconds to make up right now. We've wide on board with Enrique here as he makes his way through Tete Rouge and gets by Morton using the full power of that HPD machine, flashing his lights just so Morton knows he's coming by. I think Morton having a little fun flashing back at him. But we've got a battle here. This is Driscoll and Hill. Driscoll getting the move done, moving himself back up into that podium position.
Looked like a straight up swap between those two. Steve Driscoll. Another lap into that stint. He's got slightly lighter fuel load there and slightly warmer car there than Kevin Hill. So these two continuing to help each other out in their battle to take up the final couple of positions on the podium. Travis Walling was still waiting for him to come in for his final stop, and Christian Challoner, 10.9 laps into his stint. He might be coming into the pits himself at any moment now. Oh, as that's very offline there for Driscoll. That might give a run there to Hill. In comes Challoner.
Yeah, Challoner coming in. Remember, he stopped on lap 23, so he'll be able to come in on this lap and make it work nice and easy. Behind him, I'm seeing Lynn Kinchlow coming in as well. But we continue to watch this battle. Hill starts to poke his nose out a little bit, but doesn't want to upset his teammate too much. They're going into the Mulsanne hairpin. There they go around. Good exit for the both of them.
Oh, that was a problem for Liam Quinn in the background there. He got into the gravel out of Mulsanne. A bit of a mistake there for the Kinetic number 25, and looked to me like just a straight up overshooting. A big lockup on the front right for Liam Quinn. So he's completely lost touch now with that Evolve pair up the front.
And that's a little bit of a heartbreak there for Liam. He was having a pretty good race up to that point. But remember, that's part of the battle we were talking about with Justin Morton. That shaved about 2 seconds off of that gap. So Morton's got a little bit more hope to be able to come to here. Continue to focus. There is Morton as he makes his way through Indianapolis and down into Arnage. Obviously, a very, very long gap up the road to our leader, Christian Challoner. But Morton doing a good job to try to reduce the gap as much as he can up the road to Liam Quinn.
Yeah, Morton, of course, fresh out of the pits. No new rubber on that car as we expected. But he might have a little bit of an olive branch coming his way if Liam Quinn continues to make some mistakes. There's HPD making his way around him of Jason Enrique up in the Porsche curves. And Enrique is still holding on very nicely to that second place in HPD. It doesn't look like he's in much trouble there with Chris Yatito a few seconds back.
Yeah, he's just got to focus on the road ahead of him and make sure he doesn't make any mistakes here at this point. Justin Morton, though, all to play for. Got that gap down under 6 seconds here to Liam Quinn. So he is certainly on the hustle, seeing what he can do in that Corvette. The Forge Racing driver trying to challenge as much as humanly possible.
That's to the end of another lap there for Justin Morton. He's got the lapped car of Wayne Hutchison just up ahead of him, and Paul Wayne Hutchison with that trouble earlier on with Mark Stevenson at Indianapolis. Stevenson having that spin and Hutchison with nowhere to go and getting that big damage into the wall. He's got a spare car on him at the moment, but still holding on to that final running position in the GT1 class. No retirements from that class, which is really good to see. It looks like Zachary Brown has brought it into the pits in the HPD as well, and as I look, he's actually been in there for 13 minutes, so I think we might be able to add Zachary Brown to the retirements here. Only retirements from this race have been in the HPD class. Collins with an incident, Waring with a disconnection, and Brown obviously calling it a day too.
Yeah, a real testament to the strength and ability of all of these drivers out here today, that we've only had those 3 retirements out of HPD. Not a lot of major contact between any drivers as well. So a very impressive run from all of these Majors Americas region cars. Well, we're going to jump up the road here. This is Joshua Chin with that massive 81-second gap back down to Jason Enrique. A very, very good run for Chin. This is your leader, and remember, he is coming off of that incredible duel to the finish win out at Indianapolis.
Yeah, he is indeed. That was a great run there from Joshua Chin. As I was prepping for this broadcast last night, this is only my second time on GSRC, I was updating myself on the happenings in the season so far, and that was a fantastic finish. Joshua Chin holding off Jason Brophy by just under a car length or so for the victory, and doing very well out in the lead at the moment here in the 2.4 at Le Mans. And with the lead that he's got over Jason Enrique, I reckon that he can afford to take a bit of a splash and dash if he needs to now.
And you see right there, I mean, just setting the fastest lap of the race so far with a 36. That is blistering pace. And just looking at it, I do think actually, guys, that he might have to make a very, very quick splash and go. And I think he's setting himself up for that. But, with Enrique coming in here the last little bit, he's going to be able to come out on this thing, I think, with a pretty healthy lead in a bit.
Yeah, I think that's right, Adam. He definitely has enough to do it. We've seen people stationary in the box for normally about 60 seconds or so on these splashes and dashes. So Hugh should be able to get out and back underway, no problem. And with the speed that he's had, even if Enrique is able to get by him ever so slightly, Chin should be able to reel him back in quite quickly.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, though, that, I mean, the first part of this race, I mean, Enrique was right there with Joshua Chin, along with Andrew Waring, and of course just the way things have kind of fallen into place as the race has gone along. It's been a pretty eventful race, and here he is, well over a minute back. And you have to think about with Jason as well with Andrew, it's the whole what could have been this thing with Joshua Chin trying to run away with it.
Exactly. It's the woulda, coulda, shoulda of it all. Some more pitting news, as I believe Christian Tito pitting out of third place right now. That's going to promote Andrew Wood up into third. Wood still has to make his second stop if he's able to make that work. I believe Lyndon Swaby is going to be able to get by Tito as well, and indeed, there he goes on by.
And Swaby just starting the fourth lap of his stint. He is good on fuel to the end, so I think all he has to do now is wait for Andrew Wood to come in, presumably at the end of this lap, because Wood's just started his 11th lap of this stint, and that'll be third place secured for Kinetic, and they'll have two cars on the podium in the HPD class, which is a great result for the team.
It is a fantastic result, and as we've said, that team's battle very, very tight across the board, so they will be very happy to pick up those points.
Indeed they will, and obviously it's been a very rough 2021 for Kinetic, marking the passing of their founder, John King, who we will remember. John's done quite a bit for the majors in his time on this earth as part of the competition committee, part of the organizational body of this series, and really promoting the series, doing a lot to get it off the ground to the point that it is today. And I think the turnout for all of these races, the strength of competition in the majors now, a testament to the work that Mike Ouellette and the majors administration team has done, but certainly John King playing an instrumental part in all of that.
I could not have said that better myself, Reese. He is one that we certainly miss here on the sim and in the majors series. But one of the things he loved best was a good battle closing in at the end of the race. And well, looks like we may have a little bit of one on our hands. This is Brian Barnes and Brian McGreevy getting into a little bit of a scrap here, as it were. This is for 7th in that HPD category. McGreevy trying to chase down that blue and yellow machine of Barnes.
Yeah, Barnes here, keeping it up very nicely, coming down the Mulsanne straight, but Brian McGreevy, you'll see him just popping up over the crest there. And this could turn out to be quite the battle for 7th place in the Majors 2.4, just passing by the restaurant on the left-hand side of the braking zone for the first of our Mulsanne chicanes, and very smooth wheel work through the chicanes there in second gear for McGreevy.
Oh, and we've just had Nick Kuhn go wide up ahead of that going into Mulsanne, that Chris Yatito able to get by him. Yatito got a little squirrely coming through the corner. Let's jump back to check out the replay. This is going to be on board with Chris Yatito. Here we go. We're going to watch this from overhead. There we go, on board with Chris Yatito. Watch this. Kuhn just out braking himself into Mulsanne.
Yeah, it looked like a front right lock-up at the turn-in point for Mulsanne. Just a little puff of smoke there, and through goes Yatito.
Tito doing a good job to keep that car under control as he almost lost it on the exit as well. So move Chris Tito up into P5. And again, we are just waiting for Andrew Wood and potentially Joshua Chin out of these HPDs to come back into the pits. Nick Kuhn is another one who does need to pit as well. All right. Yeah, this is Driscoll and Kevin Hill. Remember, these teammates have been battling for a lot of this race. Driscoll now holding about a 1.4 second advantage over his teammate. This is seesawed back and forth over the course of everything. And also, just a note, Andrew Wood is coming into the pits as we speak.
And you got to realize this is very likely going to be the battle for second place here between Driscoll and Hill, because we're all believing that Worling's going to have to make another stop here, and he might actually make that here in the next lap or so. So these guys will be fighting for second and really the podium here between the two of them. To fill out the podium, rather, because talking is hard.
We all knew what you meant there, my friend. But no, to that point, Worling, remember, is on his 11th lap of this stint. We've only ever seen a guy be able to extend this out to 13. Worling is currently in second right now. I think your instincts are right, Adam. I think he's going to have to come in. I think this is just going to be...
Hill's around.
Oh, no. That's at the first Mulsanne chicane, and just getting back on track. Lyndon Swaby having to take a bit of avoiding action there on the exit on the replay right now. We'll see what happened to Hill. I think this is just a case of locking up. Yes. He just went straight on here at the chicane. Big puff of smoke there, and going over the gravel, he lost control. Actually got it spun around. So poor Kevin Hill there. That is not going to be a very good turn of events for him. That's promoted Liam Quinn up into third, but it looks like Hill is starting to try and fight back here.
Yeah, but this very well could be a very fun battle, because this will end up being for third and the final spot on the podium. This time I can get it right. Between Hill now and Liam Quinn. This could be a fun final lap to watch between these two, where in the other battle, I really think Driscoll had Hill. He was just kind of, managing the gap more than anything.
And I think that's about a right assessment there. Driscoll has looked pretty in control of this race, but we continue to check in there. That is Liam Quinn with Kevin Hill chasing him down, ticking down with just 7 minutes to go here at the Majors 2.4 hours of Le Mans. It has been a very exciting race. A couple of little incidents here and there, but not a lot of attrition. Going to check in on our leader overall. This is Joshua Chin making his way around those final set of Corvette curves before he gets on to this little mini straightaway before the Ford chicanes. We're not sure if he's going to have to come into the pits or not, so let's keep an eye.
Yeah, just making his way out onto the Mulsanne now is Joshua Chin, and it is going to be a bit borderline for him, considering he pitted with about 50 minutes to go. But I would say that he'll be able to hold on to this lead regardless, because Jason Enrique's only just crossed the line.
And GT1's Worling is in.
All right, so the great question, Travis Worling not able to make it work. I do believe that is going to promote Driscoll up into second place by the time this is done. There he is coming through the Ford chicanes right now. Now, granted, this will be a splash and dash for Worling, but he's still going to have to be stationary in the box for a good chunk of change here. Worling is back underway. Driscoll's going to be able to get him, but I don't know if Quinn's going to be able to get him or not. That's going to be the real battle here.
Yeah, that might have been just quick enough that he might have been able to pull that off. No, but he's going to get mixed up in this battle here. Between these.
Here we go.
We're going to have a three-way battle for third for GT1 here. This could be great.
Oh, no, there goes Kevin Hill. Oh, just lost it on the brakes.
Yeah, lost it under brakes, locked up those rears, and I have to say, I was watching Travis Warling. I think he could have gotten that and gotten it underway, but he was slow getting off the pit speed limiter. But let's watch here. This is Kevin Hill. Let's watch the onboard. You're going to see Warling pop out to the right here any second.
Yeah, these bumps in the braking zone really sending Kevin Hill a cropper. If you're offline through there, there's some big bumps on the inside, and the brakes just locking a little bit there at the rear, I think, and sending Hill around. So again, third place potentially slipping away from him. But now the battle for the final podium spot is between the two Corvettes of Hill and of Quinn, and Warling.
I was just getting ready to say, the names may have changed, but the circumstances haven't. They're still going to have just a great battle, I think, here for third. I was hoping it would be for 3 cars, though, for a split second. But Warling's hanging tough here so far. And this is, he's got the pace. I mean, he's shown pretty comparable pace to Liam Quinn in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, he's been doing very good, and remember, he's probably watching a little bit of the fuel run here, so let's see what Warling can do if he is able to go full out. Look at that speed advantage for Travis Warling, dropping off a little bit. Ooh, lock up in front from Liam Quinn. That's going to be advantage Warling.
At least in the first part of the... Whoa! That's a spin there for Warling. He just lost the rear coming out of the chicane over the bumps there. And oh, just like that, I thought we had a battle for third on our hands, guys, but it's all gone now.
Well, so much for that. Travis Warling taking himself out, as it were. And I can report that Joshua Chin has just crossed over the start-finish line. So that means that there will be 2 laps to go here for our HPD leader.
Replay there for Travis Warling, and he was a little bit compromised there on the exit due to that mistake from Quinn, but you see as he comes over the crest, the crown in the road that I was talking about before, that really unsettles the rear. And out of that second Mulsanne chicane, you really have to try and keep it as tight as you can, keep the wheel as straight as you can through that left-hander back onto the straight. Warling really coming off second best there.
Yeah, the wall, I think, was certainly the prize fighter that won that little disagreement with him. Very, very hard to see. But we are going to jump over here to the GT3s. This is James Walker.
I don't know if we caught it, but Chin did come in for that quick splash and go. So he is good the rest of the way here, obviously.
Well, we're going to jump to him right there. That is your leader, Joshua Chin, in the Kinetic America's Pro 193 machine. As I said, he took 2 laps to go on that last time out. So he'll be coming to the white flag this time. He came in on lap 39, which was just about 2 laps ago. So he has done a great job here. He is good to go to the end. Same pit strategy here at this point. And we are just waiting for this very impressive driver to finish up another lap and a half.
Yeah, and even with that pit stop, I mean, the gap between him and Henrique is still almost a minute. So, it was never really in question as long as he could keep the car clean. He's driven a fantastic race, and everybody around him has had one issue or another. But Joshua Chin's held firm. Despite the first lap, he's held firm and got the job done here so far.
Indeed, after 2.4 hours, it's a little hard to remember that Chin had that slowdown on the first lap that he had to fight back from. But the guy who has not had a slowdown and not had a problem from start to finish, well, that is Christian Challoner. He is currently in the lead of this GT1 field. He has been dominant here today, a 67-second gap over Steve Driscoll. Just a powerhouse of a performance, and dare I say, a Challoner-esque performance, as we have come to expect this kind of thing from him.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not much more you can say about Challoner that we haven't already said. It's been an absolute top-class drive from the Corvette machine here, and he'll come home with a very well-deserved victory and keep his spot there at the top of the championship, but again, by only 1 point from James Walker, who is on his way to a win in the Porsche Cup class.
Yeah, and with James Walker, I mean, he's been dominant down there too, and with the Porsches. And This may be one of the most exciting races we've had in a long time as far as multi-class, where all three class winners very well are probably going to win this race by over a minute in each of their individual classes. A lot happened, and it was exciting for sure.
Indeed, and here comes Joshua Chin to the line, ready to take that white flag.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, white flag. My apologies. Crossing the line with 10 seconds. I thought you were going to call the victory there, DJ.
No, sir. No, sir. I had my handle on. A little bit of confusion up here in the booth. That is Joshua Chin taking the white flag here. 1 lap to go for all of these drivers. Chin putting in the masterclass. Here comes Challoner making his way through the Porsche curves for the penultimate time as he pilots that Corvette around. He will keep his championship lead if things stay the way they are, but he will keep it by only a single point over James Walker.
Battle still on here. Just coming into Mulsanne corner for James Walker over that hump, coming up to the southern end of the circuit, and that's another part of the track that's changed quite a bit over the years. That hump coming into Mulsanne corner used to be much higher, but was reprofiled, flattened out some decades ago to stop the potential of cars taking flight and flipping. Obviously, that's not as much of a problem with the chicanes now, but still, it's a very noticeable part of the circuit.
It is indeed. And Walker, another one who has just had an absolute dominant performance here. We haven't given him nearly as much screen time as we have some of our other leaders, but a very, very good one. We're going to jump over to Joshua Chin here. He's got a little bit of traffic to get around. This is Brian McGreevy as they make their way through the second Mulsanne chicane.
Tiny mistake there from Joshua Chin on the entry, coming up very close to Brian McGreevy, and I think a little bit of aero disturbance there, but Chin makes his way past Mark Stevenson, who's still holding on to that stellar drive for second in Porsche Cup, and Chin will want to waste no time here getting past Brian McGreevy.
No, he won't. He will just want to have the smoothest, easiest drive that he can to the flag. McGreevy gets a little bit squirrely there coming on to that bank or the curbing there on the outside of Mulsanne. Chin giving him the flash, saying, please let me by. It'll be a question here if McGreevy lifts and lets him go. Looks like he's giving him a little bit of lift before they go through that sweeping right-hander before they get to Indianapolis. And indeed, McGreevy lets Chin by. That's going to be Brian Bennett right ahead of him that he'll have to navigate, but Chin coming through Indianapolis for the last time.
And what a drive it's been from Joshua Chin, but I can't help but think, what if Andrew Waring had not had his technical issues? He would probably have been right there with Joshua, and we could have had an amazing battle for the win, but that certainly takes nothing away from Joshua's drive here. He's won at Indianapolis, and he is right on his way here to taking victory at Le Mans again.
He certainly is, working his way through the Porsche curves, working his way around, and now moving into the second part of this, which has been renamed the Corvette curves, as we've been told. Joshua Chin, winner of the Indianapolis 500, comes out of the curves, lines up for the Ford chicanes for one last time. The king of chins in the top category in the HPD. One set of chicanes, two set of chicanes. He's got it through cleanly, and that is a victory at the 2.4 hours of Le Mans for Joshua Chin.
Big applause from me. That was a fantastic drive, recovered super well from that slowdown he suffered on the first lap, and was able to take tires there in that final stint to keep himself nice and pacey as the sun went down. As dusk sets on Le Mans, we've got Christian Challoner on board through the Porsche curves. An absolutely dominant drive here from the reigning champion in the Corvette. He'll be taking a well-deserved victory in GT1 to hold on to his championship lead.
And hold on to it, he will. A wonderful, wonderful drive from Challoner, something we have come to expect from him time in and time out. Here he comes through the one set of the Ford chicanes. Nice and easy, brings it a little bit wide, slows down the car a little bit, and brings that Corvette to where it belongs, and that is the top step of the podium. Christian Challoner wins in the GT1 category at Le Mans, a dominant 99-second advantage.
We've got Steve Driscoll coming along to finish in second in GT1 as well. Sorry, Adam.
I was just going to say, the next class up, of course, is going to be, actually, is this a battle here with Driscoll and Morton?
Oh, is it?
It is
Morton.
indeed. Morton's been closing in like a train with a full head of steam. He just got by, Steve Driscoll.
Wow, okay. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, this is going to go right down to the line, boys.
It is indeed.
Did something happen, or is Morton a lap down? No, they're on the same lap.
No, they're on the same lap here, Adam, and this is just a powerhouse of a drive here for Justin Morton, moving his way up into 4th place. He has just been on an absolute tear. Now we ride on board with Driscoll, seeing if Driscoll's got anything through the Porsche curves on this last lap.
Liam Quinn and Kevin Hill are in front of them, so what happened to Driscoll to cause
Something has happened.
Because Quinn is getting ready to come across here for 2nd in GT1.
What?
And 3rd is going to go to Kevin Hill.
Oh my goodness gracious, can you believe it? A surprise last lap finish. Hill takes it for 3rd. We're going to focus in on Morton and Driscoll. Does Driscoll have anything through this last chicane? He's going to try for it, gets a little bit of a different advantage, but no! It's going to go to Justin Morton, P4, and in 5th will be Steve Driscoll, but we've got to jump back here to James Walker. This is your GT3 leader, and he now comes through down into the Ford chicane for the last time. Another dominant drive from Walker, and secures, if he can make it through these final 2 curves, secures his 2nd place in the points, only a point off of your current champion and reigning points leader, Christian Challoner. A great drive from James Walker.
Fantastic. With Driscoll had to make a very quick splash and go on the white, coming to the white flag. So that's what put him back into the clutches of Morton and changed the game. And I'll admit right along with you guys, I thought Driscoll could have gone the rest of the way too, but I guess it wasn't in the cards for him. So GT1 still ended up being exciting for the podium.
Well, folks, you just saw the 2.4 hours of Le Mans presented by the America's Region Majors series. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere because we will be back with a final recap and driver interviews. welcome back to the Majors Americas Region 2.4 Hours of Le Mans. Before we run you through the final finishing order, we want to bring you back to what we were talking about before we went off air, Steve Driscoll's incident. We believe we've been able to pull this up here for you, so we're going to bring you back to replay. Adam, walk us through this.
Yeah, Driscoll had the last-minute pit stop here coming to the white flag. He's fine. He was whirling, coming out of the last bit of the Ford chicanes, going to get a little hot, and going to end up putting it into the barriers, coming to the white flag, and that was going to end his day. We were following Warling. We thought maybe he might be in a little bit of a battle there, possibly for the podium at one point, and his day came to a pretty unceremonious end, and you're going to be able to see it here on the GSRC replay machine, and just catching the curbs just a little bit, gets a little wobbly, puts in the tires, and that was going to be the end of Warling's day.
Oh, there it is, and there is the mystery solved of Warling. But let's run you through that final finishing order for what was a great race here today. Joshua Chin able to come out on top after a very, very good drive through the field. Behind him was Jason Enrique and Lyndon Swaby rounding out your podium. Andrew Wood was behind him in fourth, followed by Chris Utito and Nick Kuhn, with Brian Barnes and Justin Kirby the only drivers to finish on the lead lap, with Brian McGreevy finishing a lap down. Adam?
Yeah, and of course, Chris Chandler coming away 10th overall, but first in GT1 and on the podium in a surprise fashion. Well, we kind of figured Liam Quinn would be there, but we thought Kevin Hill might have been on the outside looking in, but he gets in there after Driscoll has to make that stop coming to the white flag. Justin Morton will get past him as well. So there's Quinn, Hill, Morton, Driscoll for your top five in GT1. Then we got Eric Smith, Brian Bennett, Ryan Steele, Lynn Kinchlow, and of course you saw what happened to Travis Warling there just a minute ago. Reese?
James Walker taking a dominant victory in the Porsche Cup class. Mark Stevenson coming home behind him for a fantastic finish there. Austin Espartee, he lost out a little bit in the mid stages of the race, but he managed to recover to finish in third. Jeff Schmeier coming home there in fourth. Jason Wallet in rounding out the top five there, with Rob Powers coming home a further lap down on our overall leaders, and it looks like the sole retirement from our Porsche Cup class, Jason Brophy, but that is a shame there for Brophy. I reckon he would have been in contention for a top five, maybe even a podium.
Well, first and foremost, we are going to go to Joshua Chin, your winner overall. Josh, that was an amazing drive from you. Talk me through that race, man.
It definitely wasn't the run I was expecting after how practice and qualifying went. I kind of figured I'd be able to run away and then mess up the first lap with the slowdown, and it was just kind of catching back up from there, and a few more other little mistakes to make it more interesting. Decided to take tires on the second pit stop just to be more consistent, and I think it paid off pretty well. I know Jason was making some mistakes down in Mulsanne, and it seemed like it kept happening more and more, so I decided hop on new tires and eliminate any shot of that happening to me.
Well, that answered one of my questions, but I do want to ask you another one, which was you obviously had that slowdown right at the top of the race, and it looked like you were charging pretty hard for that first stint. Can you talk me through what was going through your mind when that happened, and if you kind of had to reframe some things when that was going along?
I figured it wasn't going to be super easy to pull away those first 2-3 laps, so at that point I just kind of went into fuel conservation mode, trying to shorten up that pit stop as much as I could. It helped a little bit, not a ton, but obviously anything you can save on the pit stop here is huge, and not having to take that, it's a big time savings. You know, even if it's a second or two, that can be the difference in pulling the draft or getting back in someone's draft. So it worked out well. It sucks that Andrew had his connection issue and dropped out of the race because it was going to be a fun battle with him. But overall, I can't be too mad about the win.
I wouldn't be mad as well. And now I've got to ask you, looking forward, we changed things up here a little bit. We're going to Crandon. Now, obviously, you're known a little bit more for your open wheel prowess, but how do you think it's going to go when you got to get out on the dirty stuff?
I like the Pro 2, and I'm somewhat familiar with the Pro 4. So it'll be fun. We did some testing probably would have been 2-3 months ago. Just messed around at Crandon. So I think we have some idea what to expect. Obviously, the start's going to be crazy, especially with it being multi-class with Pro 4 and Pro 2. But I think it'll be entertaining. Hopefully get through it in one clean piece. It definitely has the potential to really mix up the championships. So a top 5 finish in class would be great just to get through and not lose points.
Well, we'll be looking for it for sure. It's been circled on my calendar for a while. Josh, anybody you'd like to thank for this win here tonight?
Big shout out to everyone at Kinetic Racing and Team Talent. This setup was actually an old Simon Trendell special from 3 years ago. I just learned today the name it has on it is based off a bread brand, which I didn't know until today. So I learned something new. Thanks to all the guys, fast car, good results in GT1 and Austin in Porsche Cup. So I'll have to go get at it at Crandon too.
Well, congratulations again, Josh. That was your HPD winner here today, Josh Chin. And now, Adam Young, I believe you've caught up with Christian Challoner.
Yeah, Christian, been a while, buddy, and come back here to the majors and find you P1, GT1, just a dominant performance here for today. You really didn't have too much excitement to worry about. At least it didn't look like it on TV.
Yeah, I mean, most of the excitement, to be honest, is just in driving the car, but it was a little bit surprising to kind of have that pace advantage because I honestly wasn't really expecting it. I actually had the week off, so I kind of was able to dedicate a bit more time to building something for the series than normally would, and kind of ended up on a deep dive into the car and really trying to figure out what was going on with it and everything like that. So, yeah, I probably had a fair bit more into this one than I have maybe some of the more recent races, and I was still kind of on the fence a bit, and then I ended up in a practice session, and I was kind of surprised at what I had, and that was pretty cool actually. I've not really had that feeling for a while, to kind of turn up with something that was really, really sorted, and actually something that I'd kind of done from ground up and whatnot. So that was a lot of fun. I want to say big congrats to Liam Quinn for kind of holding it together and coming through with that second spot, because there was a couple of times where it seemed like he thought he maybe had gone away from him a bit, but just ran a solid strategy, a good race, and was able to pick up that second to visit a team 1-2. So that was really cool. And honestly, yeah, it was just a fun car to drive, and it took a bit to get used to. I think everybody kind of had to take a while to get it figured out, but once you did, it was really, really rewarding to drive, and yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, and I know you like to go back and watch these broadcasts. What Liam Quinn went through to get this up to second, you're gonna all the fighting was behind you. I'll tell you that. But you know, it was all eyes in front of you. It didn't even seem like, as far as dealing with the multi-class traffic, it was that bad here tonight.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. I had a couple of different strategies sort of planned out in case I wasn't able to get away at the beginning and get out of the draft range, but that proved to not be a problem. I actually had a really kind of crazy, I'm going to pit on lap 6 idea, and then kind of run from there and just doing full tanks to the end. And I think it still would have worked. It would have been interesting to do, but it wasn't necessary, so I just decided to play it safe. And it's always easier to kind of work out the fuel for the last stint, like when you get there, rather than sort of preempt it. And obviously that bit a couple of people as well. I know Liam himself I think he was a leader short starting that last stint, so he was able to save it, not make mistakes, and came home with second. So yeah, it was really cool, and a bit unfortunate, I would say, for a couple of guys in GT1 who had issues, who were actually really, really fast. Eric Smith was one of them. He was very, very quick. I think I was a little bit lucky to kind of break out of the draft with him at the beginning. And same goes for Steve Driscoll. I don't know what happened with him on the first lap, but I looked behind and he wasn't there.
Yeah, that'll be another guy that'll be fun for you to watch later. He had a comeback story there, but you know, Christian, hey, I guess I'm going to ask you who you're going to thank, of course, and I guess for giving you the week off, you got to thank the crew at iRacing for that one. But who else do you got to give a thank for?
Yeah, for sure. I would also give a shout out to everybody with the Kinetic guys who have kind of helped out along the way. I know Liam was pretty invested in building a set for this as well, and that was cool. Josh obviously won HPD class. That was cool to see as well. And I think it's a team event. We had a really good actually night, so that was cool. In terms of other shout outs and whatnot, obviously ran Majors 24 last weekend. It wasn't really kind of up there and split someone up. I had a good time with teammates Daniel Johnson and Lyndon Swaby, but we missed out on that one by I think about 4.8 seconds, and that was kind of rough because I think it actually lined up with John King's birthday, so we kind of really wanted to win that. We didn't, but I was able to come away with this one today, so that was pretty cool. Obviously, a shout out to John. And actually, something else I realized kind of at the beginning of the night, my crew chief for the first year I ran for the Coke Series and also ran up through Road to Pro with Jason Miller. We lost him towards the beginning of, the end of last year. And it's actually would have been his birthday tomorrow. So, yeah, it's kind of a sad deal, but a cool deal at the same time.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that 4.8 seconds at the end of a 24-hour race, John still would have been proud of you there, Christian. So, hey, appreciate you stopping in, man. Congrats again on the win and retaining the points lead, it looks like, as well. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
And now I believe, Reese, you have caught up with our GT3 winner, James Walker.
I have indeed. Welcome to the booth, James, and congratulations on what seemed like an easy victory from up here in the commentary box, but how was it for you from the driver's seat?
It was a pretty good race. It was mostly, I guess, surviving that first lap and then settling into a groove, because there weren't too many of us Porsches out there, unfortunately. The other classes were more popular.
Indeed, but still an excellent race victory for you. You're familiar with race-winning form in the Porsche Cup class. You obviously took victory in that class at the Nürburgring 2.4, earlier in the season. Did you carry anything from that race to this one in terms of how to set up the car, how to get the best out of it as you're going around on track?
Well, the setups for Nürburgring and Le Mans are completely different. You gotta run low wing here, so it makes it kind of sketchy when you're on single stented tires.
And speaking of tires, obviously the best deal here at Le Mans is to avoid taking tires as much as possible. It's not really that hard on tires, but how hard were you pushing to try and preserve that rubber to the end?
I was driving like 90% because in testing, we'd had a lot of wear, and I'd actually gone with a setup that had less camber to preserve the tires.
Well, that's obviously worked out fantastically for you. With that win, you now elevate yourself to second in the Pro Drivers standings, with Andrew Waring suffering a disconnection. So it's still incredibly close between yourself and Christian Challoner. The gap stays at 1 point between the two of you.
Yeah, looks like it's gonna be a good fight for the rest of the season.
Yeah, certainly is. Well, before we let you go, James Walker, anyone that you'd like to thank from your garage?
Oh, I want to thank Forge, Major's Garage, Rethread Clothing, and you guys for broadcasting all these years.
That's James Walker there, the winner of the Porsche Cup class. Some fantastic driving that we've seen from all three of our class winners today, DJ.
Indeed, it was a great race across the board, but as with all good things, this one must come to an end. We want to especially thank and point out our charity here tonight, LGMD2I. Make sure to go over to their website, donate. They are doing some great work to fight against the limb girdle muscular dystrophy type 2I disease that is out there. We also want to give specific thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of her and more of her great work. Also, thanks to the team today, Adam, Reese, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including some upcoming races, you can find all info at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media through the outlets listed on the bottom of your screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, head on over to our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. The link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Well, you heard us talk to some of these drivers about it here tonight. The next race for the Majors Americas region is going to be the Crandon World Cup, July 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We also have some upcoming races for other series listed here on your screen, so check them out, mark them down on your calendars. You don't want to miss any of them. But until next time, race clean race hard, and we'll see you on the track.